The day Harry Potter walked into the ministry at age 9 and demanded his parents' case files. Chapter 1, The boy who demanded answers. Harry Potter woke up gasping, his small body drenched in sweat despite the cool air seeping through the cupboard vents. The green light. Always that blinding flash of green light, followed by a woman's scream that seemed to echo inside his skull long after he'd opened his eyes. Not Harry. Please, not Harry. The 9-year-old boy sat up, bumping his head on the sloped ceiling of the cupboard under the stairs, his bedroom at number 4, Privet Drive. For 3 nights straight, the same dream had jolted him awake at precisely 3:17 a.m. Harry fumbled for his taped-together glasses and squinted at the cracked plastic watch he'd salvaged from Dudley's mountain of discarded toys. 3:17 a.m. Again. Harry pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to hold on to the fragments of the dream before they slipped away. There was more this time, a flash of something he hadn't seen before. A piece of paper with an address. A telephone box. A strange symbol that looked like an M with lightning bolts. Ministry of Magic, Visitor's Entrance, he whispered to himself, the words surfacing from somewhere deep in his memory. Harry froze. Where had that come from? The Dursleys never, ever mentioned magic. The word itself was forbidden in their house, right up there with parents, Potter, and questions. A strange calm settled over Harry. For years, odd things had happened around him, his hair growing back overnight after Aunt Petunia's brutal haircut, somehow ending up on the school roof while running from Dudley's gang, the vanishing glass at the zoo. The Dursleys punished him each time, as if these incidents were his fault, as if he had controlled them somehow. Maybe he had. Harry slid out of his cot and pressed his ear against the cupboard door. Uncle Vernon's thunderous snores rumbled from upstairs. The coast was clear. Harry eased the door open, wincing at the slight creak of the hinges, and slipped into the darkened hallway. He moved with the practiced silence of someone accustomed to avoiding notice. The kitchen was his first stop, he'd need food. Harry grabbed a half-empty loaf of bread and stuffed it into one of Dudley's old backpacks that had been thrown in the trash after the zipper broke. Harry had fixed it with safety pins from Aunt Petunia's sewing kit. Next, the loose floorboard in the hallway. Harry pried it up with nimble fingers and retrieved his small collection of treasures, a toy soldier with only one leg, a smooth green rock he'd found in the park, a crumpled photograph he'd rescued from the trash. It showed a red-haired woman holding a baby, but most of it had been torn away. Harry had always sensed it was his mother, though Aunt Petunia had slapped him when he'd asked. But there was something else under the floorboard now, something he didn't remember putting there. A yellowed envelope, addressed in emerald green ink, Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. Harry's heart pounded as he turned the envelope over. There was a wax seal bearing that same strange M symbol from his dream. With trembling fingers, he broke the seal and pulled out a sheet of parchment. Most of it had been blackened, as if someone had burned it, but a few fragments remained legible. Pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Ministry of Magic, Visitor's Entrance, dial 62442. The last part was circled in red ink, and a different handwriting had scrawled in the margin, the truth is in the files. Find them. Harry's mind raced. This was real. Magic was real. And somewhere at this ministry, there were files, about what? About him? About his parents? He thought of the countless times he'd asked Aunt Petunia about his parents, only to be told they'd died in a car crash because his father was a drunk. He thought of the strange looks he sometimes got from people on the street, the odd man in the purple top hat who had bowed to him once in a shop, causing Aunt Petunia to hustle him away. People knew things about him, things the Dursleys had kept hidden. Harry stuffed the envelope into his backpack and crept back to his cupboard. He dressed quickly in his least ragged clothes, added a water bottle from the kitchen, and the small collection of pound notes he'd accumulated from doing neighbors' yard work. The Dursleys never knew about this money, they'd have taken it if they had. At 4:28 a.m., Harry Potter slipped out the back door of number 4, privet drive and vanished into the pre-dawn darkness. He wouldn't return. The London Underground was bewildering. Harry had never been allowed to go when the Dursleys took Dudley on outings, and the maze of colorful lines on the map made his head spin. But he'd studied the maps at school during library time, fascinated by the sprawling transit system. Now, that knowledge proved useful as he navigated his way to central London. "You lost, son." An older woman with a kind face peered down at him as he studied the map at Victoria Station. "No, thank you," Harry said politely. "I'm meeting my dad at his work. He's expecting me." The lie came easily. Harry had learned that adults often left you alone if you seemed confident and had a reasonable explanation for being somewhere. The woman nodded, seemingly satisfied, and moved on. By mid-morning, Harry emerged from Westminster Station into the bustling heart of London. The Houses of Parliament loomed nearby, but Harry wasn't interested in tourist attractions. His eyes scanned the streets, looking for, what exactly? A magical entrance to a hidden world? Dial 62442. Harry spotted a red telephone box on a side street and approached it cautiously. It looked ordinary enough, but something pulled him toward it. Heart hammering, Harry stepped inside and lifted the receiver. He dialed the numbers. 62442. Nothing happened for a moment. Harry was about to hang up when a cool female voice spoke, not from the receiver but seemingly from the air around him. "Welcome to the Ministry of Magic. Please state your name and business." Harry swallowed hard. "Harry Potter. I'm here to see my parents' files." A pause, then, "Thank you. Visitor, please take the badge and attach it to the front of your robes." A small silver badge clattered into the coin return slot. Harry picked it up and read, "Harry Potter File Access, Visitor to the Ministry. You are required to submit to a search and present your wand for registration at the security desk, which is located at the far end of the atrium." Before Harry could reply that he didn't have a wand, the floor of the telephone box shuddered and began to sink. Harry grabbed the wall as the pavement rose past the windows, and then he was descending into darkness. The box landed with a gentle thud, and the door sprang open. Harry stepped out into the most extraordinary space he'd ever seen. He stood at one end of a splendid hall with a polished dark wood floor. Peacock blue ceiling stretched overhead, inlaid with gleaming golden symbols that kept moving. Walls lined with fireplaces flashed emerald green every few seconds as people emerged from them, dusting off their long robes. In the middle of the hall stood a massive golden fountain featuring strange creatures Harry couldn't identify. People hurried past in robes of various colors, some carrying scrolls of parchment, others engaged in hushed conversations. No one paid any attention to the small boy standing by the telephone box, not at first. Harry took a deep breath and marched forward, heading toward a desk at the far end where a bored-looking man in peacock blue robes sat reading a newspaper. The headline "Fudge Confident About Quidditch World Cup Security" moved across the page, the accompanying picture of a portly man in a bowler hat actually waving at readers. "Excuse me," Harry said, approaching the desk. The guard looked up, annoyed at being disturbed. "Wand," he said automatically, holding out his hand without really looking at Harry. "I don't have a wand," Harry replied. "I need to see someone about my parents' files." Now the guard actually looked at him, eyes narrowing as they took in Harry's too large clothes and unruly black hair. Then his gaze fixed on Harry's forehead, on the lightning-shaped scar partially hidden by his fringe. The guard's mouth fell open. "Blimey," he whispered. "You're Harry Potter." His voice wasn't particularly quiet, and several nearby people stopped walking. A witch dropping off a package turned so quickly she knocked over a stack of leaflets titled "Workplace Hexes, Know Your Rights." "Yes," Harry said, growing uncomfortable with the attention. "I need to see the files about my parents' deaths. The official records." The guard seemed unable to process this request, still gaping at Harry. More people were gathering now, whispering and pointing. "It's Harry Potter. The boy who lived. What's he doing here?" He's so small. Should someone call Dumbledore? Harry felt his temper rising. He'd come too far to be gawked at like an animal in a zoo. I want to see the files about what happened to my parents, he shouted, his voice echoing across the atrium. Complete silence fell. Every face turned toward him. Harry stood his ground, fists clenched at his sides, breathing hard. Then someone pushed through the growing crowd, a tall, thin man with vivid red hair and a kind, weathered face. Now then, what's all this? The man asked, looking from the stunned security guard to Harry. When his eyes fell on Harry's face, they widened in recognition, but unlike the others, he quickly composed himself. Mr. Potter, he said quietly. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere less public. Who are you? Harry demanded, not moving. Arthur Weasley, Department of Misuse of Muggle Artifacts. And you, young man, have caused quite a stir. Despite his words, Mr. Weasley's tone was gentle. How did you even get here? You're supposed to be, he stopped abruptly. With the Dursleys? Harry finished. They don't care where I am. And I'm not going back until I get answers. Mr. Weasley studied him for a moment, then nodded. Very well. Come with me. As Mr. Weasley led Harry toward the elevators, the crowd reluctantly parted. Harry heard snippets of conversation. Should we contact the minister? What about Dumbledore? The files are sealed, everyone knows that. How did he even find the entrance? Harry ignored them, focusing instead on keeping up with Mr. Weasley's long strides. They entered a crowded elevator, where people pressed themselves against the walls to maintain distance from Harry, as if he might explode. Level 2, announced a cool female voice as the elevator shuddered to a halt. Department of Magical Law Enforcement, including the improper use of Magic Office, Auror Headquarters, and Wisingamot Administration Services. This way, Mr. Weasley said, guiding Harry down a corridor lined with doors. They stopped at one labeled Records Office. Inside, a plump witch with gray hair was organizing floating files that zoomed around the room in complex patterns. She looked up as they entered. Arthur. What brings you? She froze when she saw Harry. Good heavens. Is that Marlene? This young man would like to inquire about the Potter case files, Mr. Weasley said calmly. I believe those would be in the restricted section. Marlene wrung her hands nervously. Oh dear. Those files are sealed by order of the Chief Warlock himself. I couldn't possibly, I just want to know what happened to my parents, Harry interrupted, his voice smaller than he intended. Please. Marlene's expression softened. Oh, child. I understand, but there are procedures. Those files can only be accessed with authorization from. The door burst open behind them. A short, portly man wearing a lime green bowler hat and a pinstriped cloak stormed in, followed by two serious-looking wizards in navy blue robes. What is the meaning of this? The man demanded. I was in the middle of a very important meeting with the Bulgarian minister when I received word that Harry Potter is demanding classified files. Minister Fudge, Mr. Weasley began, I was just explaining to young Mr. Potter that there are proper channels, improper channels is more like it. Fudge spluttered. The boy's not even supposed to be here. He's meant to be safely with his Muggle relatives. Harry stepped forward, surprising everyone. Those relatives have lied to me my entire life. They told me my parents died in a car crash. They never mentioned magic, or Hogwarts, or anything about who I really am. Fudge's face paled. Now see here, boy, my name, Harry said through gritted teeth, is Harry. Not boy. The Dursleys call me boy when they're not calling me freak. Something in Harry's tone made everyone in the room go still. The lights flickered, and several files hovering nearby suddenly dropped to the floor. Minister, came a new voice from the doorway, perhaps we should hear Mr. Potter out. A square-jawed witch with short gray hair and a monocle surveyed the scene with interest. She carried herself with unmistakable authority. Amelia, Fudge sputtered, this is hardly the time, on the contrary, Minister. I believe this is exactly the time. She turned to Harry. Mr. Potter, I am Amelia Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. I knew your parents. Your father was an Auror, a dark wizard catcher, under my command. Harry felt a surge of, something. Pride? Longing? No one had ever spoken about his parents as real people with real jobs and lives. I want to know the truth, Harry said. All of it. Not what the Dursleys made up, and not whatever edited version adults think I should hear. I want to see the official records. Amelia Bones studied him for a long moment, then nodded. The boy has a right to know about his own history, Minister. Particularly if his guardians have been, less than forthcoming. Dumbledore arranged those guardians. Fudge protested. He assured us the boy would be properly prepared when the time came. Well, I wasn't, Harry snapped. I didn't know anything until I found a burned letter under my floorboard that talked about Hogwarts and the Ministry. This seemed to shock everyone in the room. A letter? Mr. Weasley asked carefully. From whom? Harry shook his head. I don't know. Most of it was burned. But it told me to come here, that the truth was in the files. Amelia Bones and Arthur Weasley exchanged significant looks. Minister, Bones said firmly, I believe we should grant Mr. Potter's request. Under supervision, of course. Absolutely not. Fudge declared. Those files contain sensitive information. He's just a child. A child whose life was forever altered by the events in those files, Bones countered. A child who has clearly been kept in the dark about his own identity. The argument might have continued, but the door opened again. This time, a tall figure with long platinum blonde hair and cold gray eyes swept in, leaning slightly on a black cane with a silver snake's head. Minister Fudge, the newcomer drawled, I was on my way to our luncheon when I heard the most extraordinary rumor. I see it wasn't exaggerated. His gaze fell on Harry, assessing him like a particularly disappointing specimen. Harry immediately disliked him. Ah, Lucius. Fudge seemed relieved. Perhaps you can talk some sense into this situation. Young Potter here has somehow found his way to the Ministry and is demanding access to classified files. Lucius Malfoy's lip curled slightly. Indeed. How precocious. He addressed Harry directly. Mr. Potter, surely you understand that the Ministry has protocols in place for good reason. Children cannot simply wander in and demand access to sensitive information. Something about Malfoy's condescending tone made Harry's resolve harden. I'm not simply wandering in. I came here specifically because someone wanted me to know the truth. Someone who knew that I was being lied to. And who might that be? Malfoy asked silkily. I don't know, Harry admitted. But they knew where I slept, the cupboard under the stairs. They knew about Hogwarts and the Ministry. And they knew about the files. A flicker of something, concern. Alarm. Crossed Malfoy's face so quickly Harry almost missed it. Minister, Malfoy said, turning back to Fudge, perhaps the boy should be returned to his relatives while we sort this out. I'm sure Dumbledore would want, I'm not going back there, Harry interrupted fiercely. Not until I get answers. The room grew suddenly warmer. The floating files began to spin faster, and a glass of water on Marlene's desk shattered. Control yourself, boy. Fudge exclaimed, looking alarmed. Amelia Bones raised a hand. Minister, Mr. Malfoy, I suggest a compromise. Mr. Potter clearly has strong feelings about this matter, and his accidental magic could become problematic if he grows more agitated. She turned to Harry. What if we provide you with the non-classified portions of the file, under supervision, while we contact Professor Dumbledore to discuss the situation? Harry hesitated. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. Fine. But I'm still not going back to the Dursleys. That can be addressed later, Bones said diplomatically. For now, why don't you come with me to my office? We can begin reviewing what's available while Arthur contacts Albus. Fudge looked like he wanted to object further, but Bones was already guiding Harry toward the door. As they left, Harry heard Malfoy murmur to Fudge, "This is most concerning, Minister. If someone is feeding the boy information." In Madame Bones's spacious office, Harry sat in a comfortable chair while she retrieved a slim folder from a locked cabinet. "This contains the public record of what happened that night," she explained, sitting across from him. "Much of the detail is classified, but this will give you the basic facts." Harry took the folder with trembling hands and opened it. Potter, James Fremont and Potter, Lily Evans deceased, October 31, 1981. Cause, killing curse, Avada Kedavra, perpetrator, he who must not be named. Witnesses, none surviving. Additional notes, residence at Godric's Hollow under Fidelius' charm. Secret keeper believed to be Sirius Black, who was subsequently apprehended for the murder of Peter Pettigrew and 12 Muggles. Black currently serving life sentence in Azkaban prison. Sole survivor, Potter, Harry James, infant, 15 months, sustained curse scar, forehead, but otherwise unharmed. Dark Lord destroyed in attempt to kill the child. Child remanded to custody of maternal relatives, Muggles, by order of Albus Dumbledore, Chief Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, etc. Harry read it twice, then looked up at Madame Bones. "Who is he who must not be named?" Bones looked startled. "They truly told you nothing, did they?" "He is, the darkest wizard of our time. Most people call him you-know-who out of lingering fear. His actual name is rarely spoken." "What is it?" Harry pressed. Bones hesitated, then said quietly, "Voldemort. Lord Voldemort. And he killed my parents." "Why?" "That," said Bones, "is where we enter classified territory. There was a war, Mr. Potter. Your parents fought bravely against Voldemort's forces. They were specifically targeted, though the complete reasons are known to very few." Harry frowned. "And this Sirius Black person? It says he was their secret keeper. What does that mean?" "The Fidelius charm is a complex spell that conceals a secret inside a person, the secret keeper. Your parents were in hiding, and the location of their home was protected by this charm. Only the secret keeper could reveal their location. So this Sirius Black told Voldemort where to find them." Harry felt a surge of anger. "Who was he to them?" Bones's expression grew troubled. "He was your father's best friend. And your godfather." Harry felt like he'd been punched. "My godfather betrayed my parents. And then killed this Peter person and a bunch of Muggles. That's the official record," Bones confirmed. "Though." She trailed off, looking thoughtful. "What?" Harry demanded. "Nothing concrete," she said carefully. "Just old questions that were never fully addressed in the chaos after Voldemort's fall. The wizarding world was celebrating his defeat, mourning the dead, and trying to round up his followers. Some cases were expedited." Before Harry could press further, there was a knock, and Arthur Weasley entered. "I've sent word to Dumbledore," he reported. "But he's at an International Confederation meeting in Geneva. It may be several hours before he can return." He looked at Harry sympathetically. "In the meantime, perhaps you should rest and have something to eat. You've had quite a morning." Harry realized suddenly that he was exhausted and hungry. The adrenaline that had carried him through his escape and journey was fading. "I suppose," he agreed reluctantly. "You're welcome to come to my home for lunch," Mr. Weasley offered. "My wife would be delighted to meet you, and we have children about your age." Madame Bones nodded approvingly. "An excellent suggestion, Arthur. I'll continue looking into the matter of the files, Mr. Potter, and we can reconvene later." Harry hesitated, torn between pursuing answers and the urgent needs of his body. "You promise I can come back? That you won't just send me to the Dursleys?" "You have my word," Bones said solemnly. Though we will need to address your living situation eventually. My children are at home for the summer holidays, Mr. Weasley added. I'm sure they'll make you feel welcome while we sort this out. Harry nodded, deciding to trust them, for now. The Weasley home, which Mr. Weasley called the Burrow, was unlike anything Harry had ever seen. It appeared to have started life as a small stone cottage, but additional rooms had been added haphazardly, creating a towering, precarious-looking structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Harry stared in wonder as they approached, having arrived via something called the Fleur network, a dizzying experience that involved stepping into a fireplace. It's not much, Mr. Weasley said apologetically, mistaking Harry's amazement for dismay, but it's home. It's brilliant, Harry breathed. They were greeted at the door by a plump, kindly-faced woman with the same vivid red hair as Mr. Weasley. Arthur. You're home early, she stopped when she saw Harry, her eyes widening as they fell on his scar. Oh my goodness. Molly, dear, this is Harry Potter, Mr. Weasley said. He's had quite a morning at the ministry and needs somewhere to stay while we sort things out. Harry, this is my wife, Molly. Hello, Mrs. Weasley, Harry said politely, suddenly feeling shy. Mrs. Weasley seemed to recover from her shock. Well. Come in, come in. You look half-starved, poor dear. I'll fix you something straight away. The kitchen was warm and cluttered in a cozy way. Dishes washed themselves in the sink, a clock on the wall had 9 hands instead of 2, and a pair of knitting needles were working by themselves in a corner. Ron. Mrs. Weasley called up the stairs. Come down and meet our guest. A moment later, a lanky boy with a freckled face and the same flaming red hair as his parents clattered down the stairs. What is it, Mum? I was just about to beat the ghoul at. He froze when he saw Harry, his mouth dropping open. Bloody hell. You're Harry Potter. Ronald Weasley. Language. Mrs. Weasley scolded. Sorry, Mum, Ron said automatically, still staring at Harry. But, it's Harry Potter. Yes, dear, I'm aware, Mrs. Weasley said dryly. And he'll be staying with us for a bit, so mind your manners. More thundering footsteps heralded the arrival of 2 identical teenage boys, followed by a younger girl who peered around them shyly. Did Ronnikins just say, Harry Potter is here? The twins spoke in a ping-pong fashion that made Harry's head spin. Fred, George, Ginny, this is Harry Potter, Mr. Weasley introduced. Harry, these are more of our children. Percy's probably in his room studying, and our 2 oldest, Bill and Charlie, don't live at home anymore. Wicked Scar, one of the twins, Fred or George, Harry couldn't tell, said appreciatively. The little girl, Ginny, turned bright red and ducked back behind her brothers without saying anything. Harry's had a trying morning, Mrs. Weasley said. He needs food and rest, not to be gawked at like an exhibit. Sit down, dear, she added to Harry, guiding him to a chair at the large wooden table. Within minutes, she had placed a bowl of thick soup and a chunk of freshly baked bread in front of him. Harry dug in, suddenly realizing how hungry he was. So, Harry, Ron ventured as he sat across from him, what are you doing at the ministry? I thought you lived with Muggles. Between bites of soup, Harry explained about his dreams, finding the letter, and his journey to the ministry. The Weasley family listened with expressions ranging from shock, Mrs. Weasley, to admiration, the twins, to awe, Ron and Ginny. You just walked in and demanded files? Fred, or possibly George, asked, impressed. That's bloody brilliant, the other twin agreed. It was pretty crazy, Harry admitted. Everyone kept staring at me and whispering. And then the minister himself showed up, all angry. Fudge is an idiot, one twin said dismissively. Fred. Mrs. Weasley admonished. Sorry, Mum, but it's true, Fred insisted. Dad says so himself. Mr. Weasley coughed uncomfortably. I may have expressed some professional concerns about certain policy decisions. Like putting muggle baiting on the back burner because it doesn't get him press coverage, George added. While the family bickered good-naturedly, Harry finished his soup, feeling warmer and more content than he could remember being. The Weasleys were loud and a bit chaotic, but there was so much obvious love between them that it filled the kitchen like a tangible force. After lunch, Ron offered to show Harry his room. "It's in the attic, so it's a bit of a climb," he warned. Harry, who had never had a proper bedroom, didn't mind in the least. Ron's room was small and sloped-ceilinged, with walls covered in posters of people flying on broomsticks, wearing orange robes. "The Chudley Cannons," Ron explained proudly. "Best Quidditch team there is." "Quidditch?" Harry asked. Ron looked flabbergasted. "You don't know about Quidditch? Blimey, those muggles really did keep you in the dark." For the next hour, Ron enthusiastically explained the wizarding sport, which seemed to involve 4 balls, 7 players per team, and goals suspended 50 feet in the air. "It sounds amazing," Harry said sincerely. "I'd love to see a match someday." "You'll get to at Hogwarts," Ron assured him. "All the houses have teams. I'm hoping to try out myself eventually, though first years rarely make it." "Houses?" Harry asked. This led to another lengthy explanation about Hogwarts, its 4 houses, and the classes Harry would take. Ron was excited to learn they'd be in the same year. "Mental that you didn't know any of this," Ron said, shaking his head. "Everyone in our world knows who you are. You're famous." "For something I can't even remember," Harry said glumly. "Except in nightmares." Ron looked sympathetic. "That's rough. But hey, at least you're finding out now, right? And you stood up to the Minister of Magic himself. That's more than most wizards twice your age would do." Harry smiled, appreciating Ron's attempt to cheer him up. "Thanks. It's just, there's still so much I don't know. About my parents, about what really happened that night. The file I saw was so thin, and Madam Bones said most of it is classified." "Dad will help you," Ron said confidently. "He's big on doing what's right, even when it's not easy." Harry hoped so. He liked Mr. Weasley and his straightforward, kind manner. The same couldn't be said for Minister Fudge or that sneering Lucius Malfoy. "You look knackered," Ron observed. "Want to have a nap? You can use Bill's old bed in Percy's room if you want, or we can set up a cot in here." Harry, who had barely slept the night before, nodded gratefully. "Thanks, Ron. A cot in here would be great." While Ron went to ask his mother about the sleeping arrangements, Harry sat on the windowsill, looking out at the wild garden behind the burrow. Chickens pecked their way around overgrown plants, and he could see what looked like potato-shaped creatures with legs bouncing among the vegetables. For the first time in his life, Harry felt like he'd found somewhere he might belong. Harry woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where he was. The cot beneath him was far more comfortable than his cupboard mattress, and instead of Aunt Petunia rapping on his door, he heard cheerful voices and clattering dishes from below. "Oi, sleeping beauty!" Ron called from the doorway. "Dinner's almost ready. Mum sent me to wake you." Harry sat up, fumbling for his glasses. The room came into focus, along with the memories of the extraordinary day he'd had. "What time is it?" he asked, stretching. "Nearly 7. You slept for ages. Come on, I'm starving." Harry followed Ron downstairs to find the kitchen bustling with activity. Mrs. Weasley directed various dishes with her wand while Mr. Weasley set the table. The twins appeared to be trying to sneak something into Percy's cup, while a tall, pompous-looking boy who must be Percy himself sat reading a thick book titled Prefects Who Gained Power. "Ah, Harry." Mr. Weasley greeted him. "Feeling better after your rest?" Harry nodded. "Much better, thank you." "Excellent timing," Mrs. Weasley said, levitating a massive roast chicken onto the table. "Everything's just ready." As they all settled around the table, Mr. Weasley cleared his throat. "I've had word from the Ministry. Professor Dumbledore has returned from Geneva and would like to meet with you tomorrow morning, Harry. Harry's stomach tightened with anxiety. What about the files? Did Madame Bones find anything else? She's still looking into it, Mr. Weasley said carefully. There are complications. But she's a thorough woman, Amelia. If there's anything to find, she will. Harry nodded, though he couldn't help feeling disappointed. He had hoped for more answers before facing this Dumbledore person, who seemed to have been making decisions about Harry's life without ever meeting him. Dad, Percy spoke up, is it true what they're saying at the Ministry? That someone slipped Harry information about the wizarding world? Mr. Weasley looked uncomfortable. We don't know for certain, Percy. Harry found a damaged letter that provided some guidance, but its origins are unclear. Could be a security breach, Percy said pompously. If someone can bypass the underage magic detection systems and the wards Dumbledore placed, enough, Percy, Mrs. Weasley interrupted firmly. This isn't dinner table conversation. Harry's had quite enough to process today without worrying about security breaches and wards. Percy looked offended but subsided into silence. The twins, however, were not so easily dissuaded. So, Harry, one of them said, George, Harry thought, though he wasn't sure, you caused quite the uproar, eh? Wish we'd seen old Fudge's face, Fred added with a grin. Boys, Mrs. Weasley warned. What? We're just saying it's impressive, George protested. Not many 9-year-olds could throw the entire Ministry into a tizzy. Despite Mrs. Weasley's obvious desire to change the subject, Harry found himself fielding questions from the Weasley children throughout dinner. What was it like living with Muggles? Had he really not known about magic until today? What did the Dursleys tell him about his scar? Harry answered as best he could, finding the Weasleys' genuine interest refreshing after years of being told not to ask questions. By the time they reached dessert, a treacle tart that Harry immediately decided was his new favorite food, he felt completely at ease with the family. After dinner, Ron challenged Harry to a game of wizard chess, which turned out to be like regular chess except the pieces moved on their own and shouted advice at the players. Harry, who had never played chess before, was thoroughly trounced, but he enjoyed it nonetheless. As the evening wore on, Mrs. Weasley insisted it was time for bed. You've got a big day tomorrow, Harry dear. You'll be staying in Ron's room again, if that's all right. I've made up the cot properly now. That's perfect, thank you, Harry said gratefully. For everything. Mrs. Weasley's eyes grew misty. She pulled Harry into a sudden hug, the first he could remember receiving since his parents died. You poor dear. Just know you're welcome here anytime, Harry. Anytime at all. Harry blinked back unexpected tears as he followed Ron upstairs. The day's events were finally catching up with him, the escape, the journey, the confrontations, the revelations. It was overwhelming. Your family's amazing, he told Ron as they got ready for bed. Ron's ears turned pink. They're all right, I suppose. Bit mental sometimes. And we don't have much money for stuff, as you can probably tell. I think they're perfect, Harry said sincerely. You're lucky. Ron looked surprised, then pleased. Thanks, mate. And for what it's worth, I think you were brilliant today. Standing up to the minister and all that. Harry smiled tiredly. I just want the truth, you know. About my parents. About what happened to them. You'll get it, Ron said confidently. Dad says Madame Bones is like a dog with a bone when she thinks something's not right. And from what you've told me, there's definitely something fishy about your godfather's case. Harry nodded, thinking about the slim file he'd seen. There had been so little information, so many questions left unanswered. Who had sent him that letter? Why were the files classified? And why had this Dumbledore person put him with the Dursleys when he must have known they hated magic? As Harry drifted toward sleep, his mind was full of swirling questions. But unlike the night before, he wasn't alone in his cupboard under the stairs. He was in a magical house, with a wizarding family who had welcomed him, and for the first time in his life, he had a friend his own age. Whatever happened tomorrow, Harry Potter would face it with something he'd never had before, hope. The dream came again that night, but this time, it was clearer, more detailed. Green light flashing. His mother screaming. But before that, a small cottage, warm and cozy. His father's laugh as he made colorful smoke rings appear from a wooden stick, a wand. His mother's gentle hands lifting him for a goodnight kiss. A large black dog that turned, impossibly, into a man with long dark hair and a booming laugh. Serious. Don't excite him right before bed. Sorry, Lily. Just saying goodnight to my godson. The man, serious, holding baby Harry carefully. Sleep tight, Promslet. Uncle Padfoot loves you. Then, later. Shouting. His father's urgent voice, Lily, take Harry, and go. It's him. Go. Run. I'll hold him off. Footsteps pounding upstairs. His mother clutching him tightly, tears streaming down her face as she placed him in his crib. Harry. Harry, you are so loved. Mama loves you. Dada loves you. Harry, be safe. Be strong. A door blasting open. A high, cold laugh. His mother, arms outstretched before his crib, a human shield. Not Harry. Please, not Harry. Stand aside, you silly girl, stand aside now. Not Harry, please no, take me, kill me instead, this is my last warning, not Harry. Please, have mercy, have mercy. Not Harry. Not Harry. Please, I'll do anything. Stand aside, girl. Green light. His mother falling. Then the pale face, the red eyes, turning on him. Harry woke with a gasp, his heart hammering, sweat soaking his pajamas. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then he heard Ron snoring from the bed nearby and remembered. The Burrow. The Weasleys. Magic. Truth. Harry sat up, knowing he wouldn't sleep again soon. The dream had been so vivid, so detailed, not a dream at all, but a memory. His mother's last words, her plea for mercy, the way she had refused to step aside. She had died protecting him. And Sirius Black, his godfather, his father's best friend, the man accused of betraying them all, had once held him gently, called him Promslet, told him he loved him. It didn't make sense. The loving godfather in his memory didn't match the betrayer described in that sparse file. Harry slipped out of bed and padded to the window, gazing out at the moonlit garden. Something wasn't right. The official story had holes that someone wanted him to discover, judging by that mysterious letter. Tomorrow he would meet Albus Dumbledore, the man who had sealed the files, who had sent him to the Dursleys, who had apparently arranged for Harry to know nothing about his heritage until Hogwarts. Harry's jaw set in determination. He would get answers. If not from the files, then from Dumbledore himself. He owed it to his parents, to his mother who had died rather than step aside, to his father who had tried to hold off Voldemort to give them time to escape. He owed it to himself. With that resolve firming in his mind, Harry Potter returned to his cot and eventually drifted into a dreamless sleep, awaiting the challenges of tomorrow. Chapter 2, Secrets in the Archives. Harry woke before dawn, mind racing with questions the thin ministry file couldn't answer. He dressed quickly in borrowed clothes from Ron, slightly too big but infinitely better than Dudley's cast-offs, and crept downstairs, careful not to wake anyone. To his surprise, Mr. Weasley sat at the kitchen table, already dressed in ministry robes, nursing a cup of tea and reading through a stack of parchments. "Ah, Harry," he said, looking up with a tired smile. "Couldn't sleep either." Harry shook his head. "I remembered more last night." "About that night?" About my godfather. Mr. Weasley's expression turned serious. Sit down, son. Tell me what you remembered. Harry described the dream, the memories of Sirius Black holding him, calling him Prongslet, his mother's final moments. They don't match, Harry concluded. The man who loved me in that memory and the man who betrayed my parents can't be the same person. Mr. Weasley's brow furrowed. Memory is a tricky thing, Harry, especially memories from when you were so young. It wasn't fuzzy, Harry insisted. It was clear. Like I was there again. He leaned forward. Mr. Weasley, what if the files are wrong? What if everyone got it wrong about Sirius Black? Before Mr. Weasley could answer, Mrs. Weasley bustled in, stopping short when she saw them. You're both up early, she exclaimed. Harry, dear, I was going to let you sleep in before your big meeting. I couldn't sleep, Harry admitted. Too much to think about. Mrs. Weasley's expression softened. Of course, dear. Well, since you're up, how about a proper breakfast? While Mrs. Weasley prepared enough food for a small army, Mr. Weasley lowered his voice. Harry, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. About not having a wand but being expected to present one at security. If you're going to be part of our world, which it seems you are, you should at least have the basics. He pulled something from his pocket, an old, smooth wooden stick about 11 inches long. This was my father's spare wand. It won't work perfectly for you, wands choose the wizard, after all, but it might respond enough for simple spells, and it'll get you through security. Harry took the wand reverently. It felt warm in his hand, like a friendly handshake. Thank you, Mr. Weasley. By 8 o'clock, the kitchen bustled with Weasleys in various states of wakefulness. The twins were testing what looked suspiciously like dung bombs under the table. Percy sat ramrod straight, polishing a silver badge while telling anyone who would listen, no one was, about cauldron bottom regulations. You're meeting Dumbledore today, right? Ron asked through a mouthful of toast. Ronald. Swallow before speaking, Mrs. Weasley scolded. Sorry, Ron muttered, then turned back to Harry. Dumbledore's brilliant, but intimidating. Fred and George reckon he can see through walls. He cannot, Percy said primly. That would violate privacy statutes established in the Magical Surveillance Prohibition Act of 1743. Heard he can read minds though, Fred, or George, said with a wink. Harry's stomach clenched. What if Dumbledore could tell he was suspicious of him? What if he just sent Harry straight back to the Dursleys? Don't worry, Harry, Mr. Weasley said, noticing his expression. Albus Dumbledore is a great man. He'll listen to your concerns. Harry wasn't so sure, but he nodded anyway. Percy, Mr. Weasley continued, you're working in the records department today, aren't you? Perhaps you could help us navigate the archives. Percy puffed up importantly. Absolutely, Father. I've been commended twice for my organizational skills already. Bet that's going on his tombstone, George whispered. Here lies Percy Weasley. He filed things alphabetically. Harry stifled a laugh as Mrs. Weasley shot her twin sons a warning look. An hour later, Harry found himself back in the Ministry's atrium with Mr. Weasley and Percy, the latter wearing pristine robes and sporting his shiny badge with obvious pride. Now remember, Harry, Mr. Weasley said quietly as they approached security, Dumbledore's meeting you at 10. That gives us about an hour to see what we can find in the archives first. The security wizard looked bored until his eyes fell on Harry. Blimey, you're back, he said, then straightened up. Wand, please. Harry nervously handed over Mr. Weasley's father's wand. The guard placed it on a brass scale, which vibrated and produced a slip of paper. Cedar and dragon heartstring, 12 inches, been in use 73 years. It was my grandfather's, Harry improvised. Mine was damaged. The guard looked skeptical but handed it back. Keep it in better shape next time, kid. As they headed toward the elevators, a crowd parted to make way for a procession of important-looking wizards surrounding a tall, elderly man with a silver beard that reached his waist. Harry froze. Even without anyone pointing him out, Harry knew instinctively this must be Albus Dumbledore. The old wizard's eyes found Harry's across the atrium, and for a moment, Harry felt like he was being X-rayed. Then Dumbledore smiled, and the sensation passed. "Harry," he called, breaking away from his entourage. "I'd heard you were in the Ministry. Our meeting isn't for an hour, but perhaps we should, actually, Professor Dumbledore," Mr. Weasley interjected smoothly. "Harry was hoping to review some documentation before your meeting. Just to be better informed." Dumbledore's smile dimmed slightly. "I see. Well, I wouldn't want to interrupt a quest for knowledge. I'll see you at 10, Harry." As Dumbledore walked away, Harry released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "He knew exactly what we're doing, didn't he?" "Probably," Mr. Weasley admitted. "Not much gets past Albus. But he didn't stop us, which is interesting in itself." "Level 4, announced the cool female voice as the elevator stopped. "Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures." A paper airplane memo zoomed in as a harried-looking witch with ink-stained fingers exited. "Percy," Mr. Weasley said as the elevator continued its descent, "you said you had access to the Central Records Repository?" Percy nodded importantly. "Junior archival assistants receive temporary clearance for general documentation, though restricted files require senior approval." "Let's start with what we can access," Mr. Weasley suggested. "Harry, what specifically would you like to know more about?" "Sirius Black," Harry said immediately. "I want to see his trial records. And anything about Peter Pettigrew, the man he supposedly killed." Percy frowned. "Those would be in criminal records, not general archives." "But you could request them," Mr. Weasley pressed. "For a research project on famous cases, perhaps." Percy hesitated. "Well, I am preparing a comprehensive analysis of judicial precedent for Mr. Crouch." "Level 2, announced the elevator. Department of Magical Law Enforcement." They followed Percy through a maze of cubicles where witches and wizards hunched over parchments or dictated to floating quills. Memos zoomed overhead like paper airplanes caught in a jet stream. "The archives are this way," Percy said, leading them down a narrow corridor to an ancient oak door with a small brass plaque, "Magical Records Repository, authorized personnel only." Percy tapped the door with his wand and murmured something. The door swung open, revealing a cavernous room filled with shelves stretching up at least 30 feet and disappearing into distant shadows. "How do we find anything in here?" Harry asked, overwhelmed. "Like this," Percy said, clearly in his element. He approached a pedestal with an enormous leather-bound book. "State your research query." "Records pertaining to Sirius Black and Peter Pettigrew," Mr. Weasley said clearly. The book flipped open, pages turning by themselves until stopping about halfway through. A line of text appeared, writing itself across the page, "Black, Sirius Orion. C. Azkaban Prisoners, High Security, Death Eater Trials, 1981 to 1982, Betrayal of the Potters." Percy copied down the references, then said, "Peter Pettigrew." New text appeared, "Pettigrew, Peter. C. Deceased Heroes, First Wizarding War, Order of Merlin Recipients, Posthumous, Black Case Victims." "That's odd," Percy frowned. "What is?" Harry asked. "There's no reference to trial transcripts for Black," Percy said. "There should be, for a case that infamous." Mr. Weasley's expression turned grave. "Let's check the Death Eater trials section first." Percy led them to a section marked 1980 to 1985, pulling down a heavy volume labeled Death Eater Prosecutions, Chronological Index. He flipped through pages, running his finger down lists of names. Avery. Barch. Belby. Black. Percy's finger stopped. November 3, 1981. "But, that's strange." "What?" Harry and Mr. Weasley asked simultaneously. It just says, transferred to Azkaban, awaiting trial. But there's no follow-up entry. No trial date, no transcript reference. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Does that mean? He never got a trial, Mr. Weasley confirmed quietly. It was a chaotic time, but still, to send someone to Azkaban without trial, especially for crimes of that magnitude. Percy looked deeply disturbed. That's illegal. Even suspected Death Eaters have rights to magical trial under Wisengamot Law 1753. What about Pettigrew? Harry asked. What happened to him? Percy pulled down another volume. Order of Merlin Recipients, 1975 to 1985. Here we are. Pettigrew, Peter. Order of Merlin, First Class, Posthumous, awarded November 3, 1981, for confronting the mass murderer Sirius Black. Killed, along with 12 Muggle bystanders, when Black destroyed half the street with a single curse. Only finger recovered. Only his finger. Harry repeated. They never found a body. In an explosion of that magnitude, it's not surprising, Mr. Weasley said, but he looked troubled. What are you three doing in here? They turned to find a short, toad-like woman in a fluffy pink cardigan standing in the doorway, her wide mouth stretched in an unconvincing smile. Percy straightened immediately. Senior Undersecretary Umbridge. I was just conducting research for Mr. Crouch's judicial precedent report. Were you indeed? She said in a sickly sweet voice that made Harry's skin crawl. Her bulging eyes fixed on him. And does your research require the presence of an underage wizard who should, by all accounts, be with his Muggle relatives? Harry is with me, Dolores, Mr. Weasley said firmly. I've been authorized by Amelia Bones to help him access information about his parents. Has he indeed? Umbridge's smile widened. How interesting, because I've just come from a meeting with Minister Fudge, who was most disturbed to hear that Mr. Potter was back in the ministry, poking around in sensitive files. She reached into her cardigan and withdrew a sheet of parchment. This is a ministerial order sealing all files related to the Potter case, the Black case, and the events of October 31, 1981. She tapped the paper with her wand, and copies appeared in front of each of them. Furthermore, Mr. Potter is to be escorted to his meeting with Dumbledore, after which he will be returned to his legal guardians. Harry's temper flared. You can't do that. I have a right to know what happened to my parents. You have the rights we choose to give you, Mr. Potter, Umbridge said sweetly. You're a child. These matters are beyond your understanding. He's also the last of an ancient and noble house, came a new voice. Harry turned to see Madame Bones standing in the doorway, looking formidable in formal navy robes. As such, she continued, he has certain hereditary rights that even the minister cannot overrule without a full Wisengamot hearing. Including the right to access family records. Umbridge's smile faltered. Amelia. This doesn't concern your department. A potential miscarriage of justice absolutely concerns my department, Bones replied coolly. Particularly when I hear rumors that Sirius Black may have been imprisoned without trial. Preposterous. Umbridge snapped, her sweet facade cracking. Black's guilt was obvious. Minister Fudge himself saw him at the scene. Then the trial records should reflect that, Bones said. Where are they, Dolores? Umbridge's face flushed an ugly shade of pink. I will not be questioned like a common criminal. These files are sealed by ministerial order. Which doesn't supersede hereditary magical law, Bones countered. Nor does it explain why you're so determined to keep a 9-year-old from learning about his own family history. While the adults argued, Harry noticed something. The copy of the ministerial order in his hand felt warm. Almost without thinking, he slipped it into his pocket, where it continued to heat up. I want copies, Harry interrupted boldly. Of everything we found. Before you seal it again. Umbridge turned her glare on him. You little, that seems reasonable, Bones interjected smoothly. The ministerial order doesn't take effect until properly filed, which gives us. She checked her watch, about 20 minutes. This is outrageous. Umbridge sputtered. The minister will hear about this. I'm sure he will, Bones replied calmly. Percy, would you be so kind as to make copies of the relevant documents for Mr. Potter? Percy, caught between his respect for authority and what was clearly right, hesitated only briefly before nodding. Right away, Madam Bones. Umbridge watched, seething, as Percy quickly duplicated the pages they'd been examining. This isn't over, she hissed, then stormed out. Charming woman, Mr. Weasley muttered. She's getting worse, Bones sighed. Ever since Fudge promoted her to senior undersecretary, she's been throwing her weight around. She turned to Harry. I apologize for the interruption, Mr. Potter. When Arthur told me what you were researching, I thought you might need backup. Thank you, Harry said sincerely. Did you know about Sirius Black not getting a trial? Bones's expression turned grim. I suspected. I wasn't department head back then, I was a junior Auror. But the timing never sat right with me. Black was apprehended on November 2nd and in Azkaban by the 3rd. Even using time turners, the Wizengamot couldn't have conducted a proper trial that quickly. Why would they skip a trial? Harry asked. Even if they thought he was guilty. Politics, Bones said bluntly. The public was terrified. They wanted someone to blame for your parents' deaths, for you know who finding them. Barty Crouch, who headed the DMLE then, was ruthless about putting Death Eaters away, due process be damned. But why wouldn't Dumbledore have questioned it? Mr. Weasley wondered aloud. He was Chief Warlock then, wasn't he? He was, Bones confirmed. And that's a very good question. Percy approached, arms full of parchment. I've copied everything I could find on Black, Pettigrew, and the Potter case before Umbridge's order takes effect. Thank you, Percy, Harry said, taking the stack. Bones checked her watch again. It's nearly 10. You should head to Dumbledore's meeting, Harry. Arthur, perhaps you should accompany him. Mr. Weasley nodded. Of course. I'll keep digging, Bones promised. There's something not right about all this. And Harry, she fixed him with a serious look. Be careful what you say to Dumbledore. He's a great man, but he plays his cards very close to his chest. The meeting with Dumbledore was nothing like Harry expected. Rather than the imposing office he'd imagined, they met in a small, comfortable room with squashy armchairs and a tea service. Dumbledore himself, despite his impressive appearance, greeted Harry with twinkling eyes and offered him a lemon drop from a small tin. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Harry, he said once they were settled. I must say, your arrival at the ministry has caused quite a stir. Sorry about that, Harry said, not feeling sorry at all. I just wanted answers. A perfectly natural desire, Dumbledore nodded. Though I confess, I had hoped to explain everything to you under different circumstances. When you were a bit older. You mean when I got my Hogwarts letter? Harry asked. The one someone already tried to send me? Dumbledore's bushy eyebrows rose slightly. Indeed. Most curious. The letters aren't scheduled to be sent until your 11th birthday. Someone sent an early one, Harry said. Most of it was burned, but it led me here. I see. Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. And may I ask who sent you this letter? I don't know, Harry admitted. I found it under a floorboard in my cupboard. Your cupboard? Dumbledore repeated, looking genuinely confused. The cupboard under the stairs, Harry clarified. Where I sleep at the Dursleys. At least, where I used to sleep. I'm not going back there. Something flickered in Dumbledore's eyes, surprise, dismay, or something else, Harry couldn't tell. Harry, Dumbledore said gently, I'm afraid you must return to your aunt and uncle's home. There are protections there, Blood wards based on your mother's sacrifice, that keep you safe from those who might wish you harm. Safe from Voldemort maybe, Harry said, ignoring Dumbledore's slight flinch at the name, but not safe from them. They hate me. They hate magic. They told me my parents died in a car crash. A car crash? Mr. Weasley repeated, aghast. Lily and James Potter? That's an abomination. Dumbledore sighed heavily. I had hoped Petunia would overcome her resentment of magic, for her sister's child. Well, she didn't, Harry said flatly. And I'm not going back just so you can keep me in the dark for another 2 years. Harry, Dumbledore began, but Mr. Weasley interrupted. Albus, I think you should know what we discovered this morning. He nodded to Harry, who pulled out the copied documents. Sirius Black never got a trial, Harry said, pushing the papers toward Dumbledore. He's been in Azkaban for 8 years without a trial. Dumbledore's face remained calm, but Harry noticed his hand trembled slightly as he picked up the documents. This is concerning, if accurate. It's accurate, Mr. Weasley confirmed. Percy verified it himself. Percy is a very thorough young man, Dumbledore acknowledged. But Harry, what does this have to do with your situation? He's my godfather, Harry said. The records show that. And I've been having dreams, memories, of him. He loved me. He wouldn't have betrayed my parents. Dumbledore looked troubled. Harry, while it's true the lack of trial is disturbing, the evidence against Sirius was overwhelming. He was found at the scene, laughing maniacally, surrounded by dead bodies. But what if he was framed? Harry pressed. What if Peter Pettigrew faked his death? They only found a finger, Professor. A single finger. That is, an interesting theory, Dumbledore said carefully. But without evidence, we'll never find evidence if the Ministry keeps sealing the files. Harry exclaimed. Umbridge just issued an order to lock everything down. Why is everyone so determined to keep me from learning the truth? Dumbledore sighed. Politics, I'm afraid. Minister Fudge values stability above all else. Reopening old cases, questioning established narratives, it creates uncertainty. And Cornelius abhors uncertainty. So an innocent man stays in prison because it's politically convenient? Harry demanded. I didn't say Sirius was innocent, Dumbledore cautioned. Merely that he deserved a trial. Will you help us get him one? Mr. Weasley asked. As Chief Warlock, surely you could, I can raise the matter, Dumbledore conceded. But without new evidence, the Wizengamot is unlikely to reconsider a case this old. Harry felt frustrated. Dumbledore was being polite, even sympathetic, but offering no real help. What about my living situation? I told you, I'm not going back to the Dursleys. That, I'm afraid, is non-negotiable, Dumbledore said firmly. The blood wards haven't protected me from being stuffed in a cupboard, starved, and bullied. Harry burst out. What good are wards against Voldemort if the Dursleys might kill me first? Mr. Weasley looked horrified. Albus, if what Harry says is true, I will speak to the Dursleys, Dumbledore promised. Ensure they treat you better, no. Harry stood up, anger coursing through him. You don't get to decide anymore. You left me on their doorstep and never checked on me, not once in 8 years. You sealed my parents' files, you let my godfather rot in prison, you kept me ignorant of everything I had a right to know. The teacups rattled. The windows vibrated. Harry's magic, responding to his emotions, filled the room with crackling energy. Dumbledore observed this display with raised eyebrows. You are remarkably powerful for your age, Harry. Don't change the subject, Harry snapped. I merely observe that your magical development suggests you may need proper training sooner rather than later, Dumbledore said mildly. Perhaps we can compromise. You return to the Dursleys for now, with regular visits from magical guardians to ensure your well-being. And we accelerate your Hogwarts admission to this September, rather than next year. Harry hesitated. It wasn't ideal, but attending Hogwarts a year early would get him away from the Dursleys much sooner. And what about Sirius? He pressed. I will look into the matter, Dumbledore said carefully. I cannot promise results, but I will review the case. Harry wasn't satisfied, but before he could argue further, the door burst open. Minister Fudge stood there, purple-faced, with Umbridge smirking behind him. Dumbledore. Fudge spluttered. What is the meaning of this? The boy is accessing sealed files, making outrageous accusations. Now, Cornelius, Dumbledore began soothingly, Harry is naturally curious about, I don't care what he's curious about. Fudge snapped. He's disrupting ministry operations, questioning closed cases, undermining public confidence. I'm seeking justice, Harry corrected, glaring at the minister. For my parents and my godfather. Your godfather is a murderer. Fudge declared. Where's the proof? Harry challenged. Where's the trial transcript? Where's the witness testimony under Veritaserum? Where's anything except your word that he's guilty? Fudge's face turned an even deeper shade of purple. How dare you question, I was there. I saw the street blown apart. You saw the aftermath, Harry corrected. Not what actually happened. This is outrageous. Umbridge interjected. Minister, I told you the boy needs to be removed from the ministry immediately. He's clearly been influenced by subversive elements. Mr. Weasley stood up. That subversive element would be me, Dolores. And I stand by Harry's right to question inconsistencies in his parents' case. This has gone far enough, Fudge declared. The files remain sealed. The boy returns to his guardians today. And there will be no more talk of reopening the Black case. It's settled law. Funny thing about laws, came yet another voice from the doorway. They're supposed to apply equally to everyone. Rita Skeeter stood there, acid green quill hovering beside her, a predatory smile on her face. Minister Fudge refusing to investigate allegations that Sirius Black was imprisoned without trial. The boy who lived forced back to abusive Muggle relatives. My readers will be fascinated. Skeeter. Fudge sputtered. This is a private meeting. Security. Called in a tip, Rita shrugged, her quill scribbling furiously. Something about a cover-up involving Harry Potter. Imagine my delight at finding the story even juicier than advertised. Harry had no idea who this woman was, but from Fudge's reaction, she clearly had power. Everything I said is true, he told her. They're trying to hide the fact that my godfather never got a trial. Is that so? Rita's eyes gleamed behind her jeweled spectacles. Care to make a statement for the Daily Prophet, Mr. Potter? Before Harry could answer, Dumbledore interceded. Perhaps this discussion would be better continued in private. Ms. Skeeter, while your interest is understandable, this is a delicate matter involving a minor who's been denied his basic rights, Rita countered. Rights you're partially responsible for protecting as Chief Warlock, Dumbledore. Don't think you're exempt from my questions. The room had become incredibly tense, with Fudge sputtering, Umbridge seething, Dumbledore attempting to regain control, and Rita's quill scratching away madly. Then a silver lynx bounded into the room, stopping before Mr. Weasley. It spoke in Madame Bones's voice, Arthur, bring Harry to the DMLE immediately. We found something critical. Use the secure lift. The lynx dissolved into silvery mist. Mr. Weasley grabbed Harry's shoulder. We need to go, he said firmly. No one is going anywhere. Fudge declared. I forbid it. With respect, Minister, Mr. Weasley replied, that was from the head of magical law enforcement. Ignoring such a summons could be considered obstruction of justice. This is a coup. Umbridge shrieked. Bones has overstepped her authority for the last time. Harry slipped the copied documents back into his pocket as Mr. Weasley steered him toward the door. Rita Skeeter stepped aside to let them pass, but not before whispering to Harry, "Find me later, Mr. Potter. Your story deserves to be told." Fudge shouted after them, but Mr. Weasley moved surprisingly quickly, guiding Harry through a side door and down a narrow corridor Harry hadn't noticed before. "What was that silver animal thing?" Harry asked as they hurried along. "A Patronus," Mr. Weasley explained. "Magical messenger. Very difficult spell, Amelia's one of the few who can make them speak." They reached a small, unmarked elevator at the end of the corridor. Mr. Weasley tapped it with his wand in a complex pattern, and the doors slid open. "This lift goes directly to the DMLE," he explained as they entered. "No stops, no interference." As the doors closed, Harry caught a glimpse of Umbridge rushing down the corridor toward them, her face contorted with rage. Then they were descending rapidly, leaving the minister and his toady behind. "Mr. Weasley," Harry said as they dropped, "what do you think Madam Bones found?" "I don't know," Mr. Weasley admitted. "But Amelia wouldn't use a Patronus messenger for something trivial. Whatever it is, it's important." The lift stopped abruptly, doors opening onto a bustling office space. Unlike the administrative sections of the ministry Harry had seen, this area hummed with purposeful energy. Witches and wizards in navy blue robes moved with brisk efficiency, maps on the walls featured moving dots and flashing symbols, and the air crackled with alert magic. Madam Bones appeared before them, her normally composed face tight with excitement. "You need to see this," she said without preamble, leading them to her office. Inside waited a surprise, Percy, looking simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. "I found it after you left," he blurted as soon as he saw them. "Hidden in the cross-reference section where no one ever looks. It was filed under W for Wisengamot Special Dispensations rather than under B for Black or for Azkaban." "Found what, Percy?" Mr. Weasley asked. Percy held up an official-looking document, sealed with wax and multiple signatures. "The order to imprison Sirius Black without trial, signed by Barty Crouch, and countersigned by Millicent Bagnold, then Minister for Magic." Madam Bones took the document, examining it closely. "This is highly irregular. A special dispensation to bypass trial on grounds of overwhelming evidence and public safety concerns. Is that even legal?" Harry asked. "Technically, yes," Bones said grimly. "During wartime, the minister and head of the DMLE can jointly authorize detention without trial. But the war was effectively over when you-know-who disappeared. And this document should have been converted to a temporary holding order, followed by a proper trial within 30 days. So they just forgot?" Harry asked, disbelieving. "Or deliberately buried it," Bones said. "Percy, you've done the ministry a great service by uncovering this." Percy flushed with pride, though he still looked nervous. "I'll probably be fired when Umbridge finds out." "No, you won't," Bones said firmly. "You've identified a serious miscarriage of justice. That's exactly what ministry employees should be doing." "There's more," Percy added. "I found the original Aura report from Black's arrest. It states that when they apprehended him, he kept saying, 'It's my fault, I killed them.' But he never actually confessed to betraying the Potters or killing Pettigrew." "What does that mean?" Harry asked. "It could be interpreted multiple ways," Bones explained. "He might have felt responsible for their deaths without actually causing them. Perhaps by convincing them to trust someone else. Like Peter Pettigrew?" Harry suggested. "What if Pettigrew was their secret keeper, not Sirius?" Bones looked thoughtful. "It would explain why Black went after Pettigrew rather than fleeing the country like other Death Eaters did after you-know-who's fall." A sharp knock interrupted them. Bones opened the door cautiously, revealing a tall, black Aura with a gold earring. "Shacklebolt," she acknowledged. "What is it?" "Minister's on his way down with a squad of security wizards," Shacklebolt reported in a deep, calming voice. "Claims you're harboring fugitives and obstructing justice." That's rich, Mr. Weasley muttered. Bones straightened her monocle. Kingsley, how quickly can you get a temporary release order for a prisoner from Azkaban? Shacklebolt raised an eyebrow. With proper authorization from the DMLE head? 4 hours minimum. The warden insists on validation protocols. Start the process, Bones decided. I want Sirius Black brought in for questioning under Veritaserum. Madam Bones. Percy gasped. The minister will never approve. I don't need his approval, Bones said briskly. Only in cases involving foreign nationals or current government officials. For a procedural review of an existing case, my authority is sufficient. Still need a Wisengamot member to witness the questioning, Shacklebolt pointed out. I'll handle that, Bones said. Kingsley, I'm giving you direct authorization. Form 62B, Emergency Prisoner Transfer for Evidentiary Hearing. Shacklebolt nodded and departed. Bones turned to Harry. We need to get you somewhere safe while this plays out. Fudge is angry enough to do something rash. He can come back to the Burrow, Mr. Weasley offered. Too obvious, Bones countered. That's the first place they'll look. She thought for a moment. Kingsley has a safe house in London. Unplottable, under Fidelius. We use it for protected witnesses. I'm not hiding, Harry protested. Not when we're finally getting answers. Harry, Bones said gently, I understand your frustration. But right now, you're the most effective weapon we have against corruption. The boy who lived, questioning the system that failed his family. The public will listen to you, which makes you dangerous to people like Fudge and Umbridge. Harry considered this. What about that reporter lady? Rita something? Skeeter, Mr. Weasley supplied. She's ruthless, Harry. Not always ethical. But she seemed eager to print the truth about Sirius, Harry pointed out. If I gave her an interview before going into hiding. Bones looked impressed. Strategic thinking, Mr. Potter. Rita would certainly splash your story across the front page, which would make it harder for Fudge to bury this again. She checked her watch. We don't have much time. Percy, can you find Skeeter? She's probably still in the building, sniffing around for gossip. Percy nodded and hurried out. Arthur, gather those copies you made. We'll want everything documented in case files start mysteriously disappearing. Mr. Weasley began organizing the parchment spread across her desk. Bones turned to Harry. This won't be easy. Fudge has power and influential friends like Lucius Malfoy. They'll fight back, claim you're confused, manipulated by adults with agendas. I know what I saw in the files, Harry said firmly. And I know what I remembered about Sirius. I'm not backing down. Good man, Bones said with approval. Now, I need you to think carefully. Is there anything else you remembered? Any detail that might help us understand what really happened that night? Harry closed his eyes, trying to recall his dream with perfect clarity. My dad told my mum to take me and run, that he'd hold Voldemort off. Then Voldemort killed him and came upstairs. He told my mum to stand aside, like he didn't want to kill her, just me. But she wouldn't move. She begged him to kill her instead. He offered to spare your mother. Bones asked sharply. That's significant. You know who wasn't known for mercy. What does it mean? Harry asked. Before Bones could answer, the office door flew open. Percy stood there, breathless, with Rita Skeeter right behind him. My lucky day continues. Rita exclaimed, surveying the scene with obvious delight. The head of magical law enforcement, the boy who lived, and a mysterious emergency meeting. The prophet might need an extra edition. Ms. Skeeter, Bones said professionally. Mr. Potter has agreed to give you an exclusive interview regarding certain inconsistencies he's discovered in the ministry's handling of his parents' case and the imprisonment of his godfather. Rita's eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Is that so? How fascinating. And what has the minister to say about these inconsistencies? The minister, came Fudge's irate voice from the doorway, says this has gone far enough. Fudge stood there flanked by Umbridge and 2 security wizards. His face was so flushed it nearly matched his purple tie. Amelia, he said in a dangerous voice, you are dangerously close to insubordination. Release the boy to ministry custody immediately. On what grounds, Minister? Bones asked calmly. Mr. Potter is here at my invitation to review evidence pertaining to his family's case. Evidence that has been officially sealed. Umbridge interjected. Actually, Percy spoke up nervously, the ministerial order wasn't properly filed until 10:17 this morning. We accessed these records at 9:43, making our review completely legal. Umbridge glared at Percy with such venom that he took a step back. You. I'll have your job for this, Weasley. For following proper procedure. Mr. Weasley challenged, stepping in front of his son. I think not, Dolores. This is all highly irregular, Rita commented, her quill scribbling madly. Minister Fudge personally intervening to suppress information about the boy who lives godfather. My readers will have questions. Fudge blanched. Now see here, Skeeter, this is a matter of national security. How exactly does a 9-year-old boy learning about his parents' murder threaten national security? Rita asked innocently, though her eyes were sharp. It's not about the boy, Fudge blustered. It's about maintaining public confidence in our institutions. By hiding the fact that you imprisoned someone without trial? Harry asked loudly. A terrible silence fell. Rita's quill nearly punctured her parchment in its eagerness to record this bombshell. What did you say? She whispered, eyes wide. Sirius Black never received a trial, Harry repeated clearly. We found the documents proving it. He's been in Azkaban for 8 years without due process. Rita turned to Fudge. Minister? Care to comment on this extraordinary allegation? Fudge looked like he might explode. This is. Amelia, I'm ordering you to contain this situation immediately. I'm afraid it's too late for containment, Minister, Bones said evenly. I've already initiated a procedural review of the Black case, including temporary release for questioning under Veritaserum. You what? Fudge roared. I forbid it. I absolutely forbid it. You cannot forbid a legal procedural review, Bones stated. The law is quite clear. As head of the DMLE, I have authority to review any case where procedural irregularities are identified. Cornelius, Umbridge hissed urgently, she's outmaneuvering you. Invoke special ministerial authority under the Emergency Powers Act. Fudge drew himself up. Very well. By the power vested in me as Minister for Magic, under the Emergency Powers Act of 1782, I am suspending your authority in this matter, Madam Bones. Bones didn't flinch. On what emergency grounds, Minister? Threat to public order. Fudge declared. Reviewing a legal case constitutes a threat to public order? Rita asked incredulously. Minister, even you can't believe that would hold up in the Wizengamot. The Wizengamot will support me, Fudge insisted, though he looked less certain. Will they? Came Dumbledore's serene voice. He stood in the doorway, resplendent in midnight blue robes. When presented with evidence that a man has been imprisoned without trial for 8 years? I think not, Cornelius. Albus, Fudge sputtered, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Dumbledore said, his voice suddenly cold. I've just reviewed the documents young Percy uncovered. Most enlightening. And most disturbing. You're joining this conspiracy? Fudge demanded. I'm upholding justice, Dumbledore replied simply. As Chief Warlock, I cannot ignore evidence of a serious miscarriage of justice. I've already convened an emergency session of the Wizengamot for tomorrow morning to review the Black case. Fudge looked like he'd been struck. You can't do that without ministerial approval. In cases of potential wrongful imprisonment, I can, Dumbledore corrected mildly. It's in the Wisengamot Charter of Rights, Section 7, Paragraph 3. The Chief Warlock may convene emergency proceedings without ministerial approval when credible evidence of judicial error emerges in cases resulting in incarceration. Rita was practically vibrating with excitement, her quill smoking as it raced across the parchment. "This is a mistake," Fudge said desperately. "You're undermining the very foundations of magical justice." "No, Minister," Harry said quietly. "You did that when you put my godfather in prison without a trial." "Out of the mouths of babes," Rita murmured, looking at Harry with newfound respect. Fudge looked around the room, seeking allies and finding none. Even his security wizards looked uncomfortable with the revelations. "This isn't over," he declared finally. "Dolores, we're leaving. We need to contact our friends on the Wisengamot." Umbridge nodded, shooting one last venomous look at Harry before following Fudge out. An awkward silence fell after their departure. Dumbledore broke it first. "I owe you an apology, Harry," he said gravely. "I did not verify Sirius's legal status as I should have. In the chaos following your parents' deaths and Voldemort's fall, many things were handled expeditiously. That is no excuse, merely an explanation." Harry wasn't ready to fully forgive Dumbledore, but he nodded acknowledgement of the apology. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Bones said, "we prepare for tomorrow's hearing. And we keep you safe until then." She turned to Dumbledore. "The Fidelius safe house I mentioned." "An excellent precaution," Dumbledore agreed. "Though perhaps with an unexpected secret keeper to further ensure security." "What about the Weasleys?" Harry asked. "Won't they be in trouble for helping me?" "Arthur and Percy were performing their duties as Ministry employees," Bones said firmly. "I'll ensure they face no repercussions. Though perhaps," Dumbledore suggested gently, "young Percy might enjoy an educational tour of the International Magical Cooperation Department for the next few days. I believe Bartemius Crouch is in Albania currently, which would provide an excellent learning opportunity away from local pressures." Percy looked both alarmed and thrilled at the prospect. "And my family?" Mr. Weasley asked. "Should take that beach holiday you've been discussing," Dumbledore suggested. "I believe Shell Cottage remains unplottable." Mr. Weasley nodded. "Bill's place?" "Yes, that would work." Rita cleared her throat loudly. "This cloak and dagger planning is fascinating, but I believe Mr. Potter promised me an interview." "Indeed he did," Bones agreed. "But perhaps somewhere more private." "My office at the Prophet is secure," Rita offered. "And I can have this in tomorrow's early edition, before the Wisengamot meets." "Perfect timing," Dumbledore observed with a twinkle in his eye. "One condition," Harry said to Rita. "You print exactly what I say. No twisting my words or making up quotes." Rita placed a hand over her heart in mock offense. "Mr. Potter. Would I do such a thing?" "Yes," chorused everyone else in the room. Rita laughed. "Fair enough. But this story doesn't need embellishment, darling. Boy Who Lived uncovers Ministry corruption, sells itself." As they prepared to leave, Harry felt a mixture of hope and trepidation. He'd come to the Ministry seeking answers about his parents and found so much more: corruption, cover-ups, and possibly an innocent godfather. Whatever happened next, there was no going back to being the ignorant boy in the cupboard under the stairs. For better or worse, Harry Potter had stepped onto the wizarding stage, demanding justice and truth. And the wizarding world would never be the same. Rita Skeeter's office at the Daily Prophet was exactly what Harry expected: chaotic, flamboyant, and slightly intimidating. Stacks of parchment teetered precariously on every surface, filing cabinets burst with folders, and the walls were covered with framed front pages featuring her most explosive stories. "Sit, sit," she urged, clearing a chair by dumping its contents unceremoniously onto the floor. "Tea? Coffee? Fire whiskey?" Oh, you're 9. Forget the last one. Just water, please, Harry said, feeling suddenly nervous. The reality of what he was doing, publicly challenging the minister for magic and questioning 8 years of accepted history, was sinking in. Relax, darling, Rita said, correctly reading his expression. You're doing the right thing. And speaking as someone who's made a career of exposing corruption, I can tell you it always looks scarier than it actually is. She conjured a glass of water for Harry and settled behind her desk, acid green quill poised. Now then. Let's start from the beginning. When did you first suspect your godfather might be innocent? Harry took a deep breath and told his story, the dreams, the mysterious letter, his journey to the ministry, the shocking discoveries in the archives. Rita's quill danced across the parchment, occasionally emitting small puffs of smoke when he revealed particularly juicy details. Fascinating, she murmured when he finished. And you believe Peter Pettigrew may still be alive? That he framed Black for the betrayal? I don't have proof yet, Harry admitted. But it makes sense. If Sirius wasn't the secret keeper, Pettigrew must have been. And if Pettigrew betrayed my parents, then faked his own death and framed Sirius. It's a compelling theory, Rita agreed. But why would Pettigrew betray your parents? He was their friend, wasn't he? Harry hesitated. I don't know. Maybe he was working for Voldemort all along. The files mentioned something about Death Eaters, Voldemort's followers. Rita flinched slightly at the name but continued writing. And what do you hope will happen now? With the Wizengamot hearing tomorrow? I want the truth, Harry said simply. About my parents, about Sirius, about everything. And if Sirius is innocent, I want him free. And then? Would you want to live with him, rather than your Muggle relatives? Yes, Harry said without hesitation. The Dursleys never wanted me. They've made that clear my whole life. Rita's eyes gleamed. Would you say they were abusive? Harry shifted uncomfortably. They never. I mean, Uncle Vernon would threaten to hit me sometimes, and Dudley, my cousin, beats me up regularly, but... They kept you in a cupboard, Harry, Rita said gently, her usual predatory demeanor softening momentarily. That alone is abuse. Harry nodded reluctantly. I guess so. I didn't know anything else until now. Rita's quill paused. And what about Dumbledore? He placed you with these Muggles, correct? Yes, Harry confirmed. And he never checked on me. Not once. The great Albus Dumbledore, leaving the boy who lived to suffer in a Muggle cupboard, Rita mused, her quill scratching furiously again. While the boy's innocent godfather rotted in Azkaban without trial. Quite the scandal. I don't want to attack Dumbledore, Harry clarified. He made mistakes, but he's trying to fix them now, helping with the Wizengamot hearing. Very generous of you, Rita remarked, though her quill didn't stop writing. Now, what about this mysterious letter that started everything? Any ideas who might have sent it? Harry shook his head. No one I can think of. It had to be someone who knew where I slept, knew about the wizarding world, and wanted me to learn the truth. A mystery benefactor, Rita murmured. How deliciously intriguing. We'll have to include that in the article, might smoke them out. Harry hadn't considered that possibility. Do you think they'll come forward? Perhaps, Rita said thoughtfully. Depends on their motives. Speaking of which, what do you make of Minister Fudge's desperate attempts to keep these files sealed? Mere political self-preservation, or something more sinister? I don't know, Harry admitted. But that Umbridge woman seemed really determined to shut me up. And there was another man, tall, blonde, carried a cane with a snake head, who seemed worried when I mentioned the letter. Rita's eyebrows shot up. Lucius Malfoy. Now that is interesting. He was accused of being a Death Eater after you-know-whose fall but claimed he was under the Imperious Curse, forced to serve against his will. You don't believe him? Harry guessed from her tone. Rita smiled thinly. Let's just say his substantial donations to certain ministry officials' pet projects have ensured minimal scrutiny of his past activities. She scribbled a few more notes, then looked up. I think I have enough for a front-page bombshell, Mr. Potter. Is there anything else you'd like the wizarding world to know? Harry thought for a moment. Just that I'm not doing this for attention or fame. I've had enough of that my whole life without even knowing why people stared at me or treated me differently. I just want the truth. About my parents, about that night, about everything that's been hidden from me. Rita's quill finally stopped moving. She studied Harry with an uncharacteristically serious expression. You know, Mr. Potter, I've interviewed ministers and murderers, celebrities and criminals. I've built a career on sensationalism and scandal. But occasionally, very occasionally, I get to write something that actually matters. She tapped her parchment. This is one of those stories. And I promise you, I'll do it justice. Thank you, Harry said, surprised by her sincerity. A knock at the door interrupted them. Kingsley Shacklebolt entered, his calm demeanor at odds with the urgency in his voice. We need to move, Mr. Potter. Now. What's happened? Harry asked, alarmed. Fudge has issued an order for your protective custody, claiming you've been bewitched or confounded, Shacklebolt explained. He's dispatched Aurors to find you. He can't do that. Rita protested. He can if he claims it's for Harry's protection, Shacklebolt replied grimly. We need to get you to the safe house before they track you here. Harry turned to Rita. Will you still be able to publish the story? Wild hippogriffs couldn't stop me, Rita assured him. I'll have this on every breakfast table in magical Britain by morning. Now go, before Fudge's lackeys arrive. Shacklebolt guided Harry to a small fireplace in the corner of Rita's office. We can't use the main Floo network, they'll be monitoring it. This is a private connection. He threw a handful of glittering powder into the flames, which turned emerald green. Step in and say, Sanctuary. It's keyed to recognize your magical signature. Harry hesitated. What about the Weasleys? And Madame Bones? All taken care of, Shacklebolt assured him. The Weasleys are already at Shell Cottage. Madame Bones is coordinating security for tomorrow's hearing. Harry nodded, took a deep breath, and stepped into the green flames. Sanctuary, he called clearly. The world spun in a dizzying swirl of green fire and rushing air. Just before he was whisked away, Harry heard shouting and the office door banging open. Then he was gone, tumbling through the Floo network toward safety. He landed in a heap on a threadbare rug, coughing as soot filled his lungs. A pair of hands helped him up. Easy there, Harry. First Floo travel can be rough. Harry blinked, his vision clearing to reveal a tired-looking man with prematurely graying hair and scars across his face. Despite his worn appearance, the man's eyes were kind. Who are you? Harry asked, instinctively knowing this wasn't Shacklebolt's safe house. The man smiled sadly. Remus Lupin. I was a friend of your parents. And of Sirius. He glanced at an old-fashioned pocket watch. We don't have much time. Rita's article hits the stands in 12 hours, and we have work to do before then. Work? Harry repeated, confused. What work? And this isn't the safe house Kingsley was sending me to, is it? No, Lupin admitted. I intercepted the Floo connection. A trick James and Sirius taught me back in school. His expression turned serious. Harry, Kingsley's a good man, but the official safe house would have kept you contained until the hearing. And there's something we need to do before then, something that could change everything. What? Harry asked, intrigued despite his wariness. Lupin reached into his shabby robes and withdrew a folded piece of parchment. Harry recognized it instantly. It was identical to the mysterious letter he'd found under the floorboard. You, Harry breathed. You sent me the letter. Lupin nodded. I did. And now I need to show you why. He unfolded the parchment, revealing a magical photograph. 4 teenage boys stood arm in arm, laughing at the camera. Harry instantly recognized his father. The resemblance was uncanny except for the eyes. Beside him stood a handsome youth with long dark hair who could only be Sirius Black. On James's other side was a younger Lupin, less scarred but with the same tired eyes. And the fourth? Peter Pettigrew, Harry whispered. Yes, Lupin confirmed. And I know where he is. Chapter 3, The Truth Unleashed. Harry stared at the photograph, his mind racing. You know where Peter Pettigrew is? But he's supposed to be dead. That's what everyone believes, Lupin said grimly. But Peter had a secret, we all did. Your father, Sirius, Peter, and I were more than just friends. We were the Marauders. The what? Troublemakers, pranksters, and unregistered animagi. Harry frowned. Animagi? Wizards who can transform into animals, Lupin explained. He gestured to a shabby sofa. Sit, Harry. This is a long story, and we don't have much time. Harry sat, unable to take his eyes off the photo, his father, young and carefree, arms slung around Sirius's shoulders. I'm going to tell you something very few people know, Lupin began. I'm a werewolf. I was bitten as a child, before Hogwarts. Harry's eyes widened, but he said nothing. Dumbledore made special arrangements so I could attend school safely. Your father and the others discovered my secret in our second year. Instead of abandoning me, they did something incredibly difficult, incredibly dangerous, and completely illegal. Lupin smiled faintly. They became animagi to keep me company during full moons. My dad could turn into an animal. Harry whispered. Lupin nodded. A stag. Majestic creature, we called him Prongs. Sirius was a large black dog, Padfoot. And Peter. His expression darkened. Peter was a rat. We called him Wormtail. Harry's mind whirled with implications. A rat? But then, he could have easily faked his death, Lupin confirmed. Cut off his own finger, transformed, and escaped through the sewers while Sirius took the blame. But why would he betray my parents? Harry demanded. Why would he work for Voldemort? Fear, perhaps, Lupin said softly. Or ambition. Peter always gravitated toward those with power. He sighed heavily. I'm ashamed to say I believed the official story until recently. I thought Sirius had betrayed us all. What changed your mind? Your dreams, Lupin admitted. I've been keeping tabs on you, Harry, from a distance. The blood wards around your aunt's house prevent direct magical monitoring, but I found ways. I cast detection spells to alert me if you experience strong magical surges. 3 nights ago, your magic spiked dramatically during your sleep. The nightmares, Harry realized. Precisely. I suspected you might be remembering that night. When I heard you muttering, Padfoot, in your sleep. Well, it made me question everything. So you sent me the letter, Harry said. Led me to the ministry. Lupin nodded. I knew you'd never find justice with the Dursleys, and I suspected the official records might contain inconsistencies. I didn't anticipate you'd cause quite such an uproar. His lips twitched. Though I should have. You're very much your father's son. Harry felt a surge of pride at being compared to his father. So if Pettigrew's alive, where is he? How do we find him? I believe he's been hiding as a pet rat, Lupin said. Staying with a wizarding family where he'd hear news, waiting to see if Voldemort ever returned. Harry's jaw dropped. A pet rat? You mean like? His mind flashed to Ron's old rat. Scabbers? Lupin looked surprised. You know about Scabbers? He's Ron Weasley's rat. Harry exclaimed. Ron said he's been in their family for years, way longer than rats usually live. Lupin shot to his feet. Are you certain? Merlin's beard, I suspected he'd be with a wizarding family, but I never imagined. Ron said Scabbers belonged to Percy before him, Harry continued excitedly. And he's missing a toe on his front paw. The missing finger, Lupin breathed. Harry, this is it. We need to get to the Weasleys immediately. They're at Shell Cottage, Harry said. Bill Weasley's place. Lupin's face fell. I don't know where that is. It must be under protective enchantments. Harry thought quickly. Wait, Mr. Weasley said it was unplottable, but he didn't mention a secret keeper. We might be able to find it if we know the general area. Bill Weasley works for Gringotts as a cursebreaker, Lupin mused. Egyptian division, if I recall. But he's recently returned to England. Ron mentioned something about the coast, Harry added. A beach holiday. Lupin's eyes lit up. Tinworth. There's a small wizarding community there, on the Cornwall coast. If Bill wanted a private cottage near other magical folk, that would be ideal. He began gathering things quickly, his wand, a small rucksack, what looked like an old compass. We'll have to be careful, Lupin warned. The Ministry will be looking for you, and they'll have alerted the Apparition Detection Office. We can't risk magical transportation. So how do we get there? Harry asked. Lupin grinned, suddenly looking years younger. The Muggle way. I've got a motorcycle. Harry had never been on a motorcycle before, and the experience was both terrifying and exhilarating. Lupin's bike, which he explained had once belonged to Sirius, roared through the night, occasionally lifting slightly off the ground when they hit an open stretch of road. Sirius enchanted it to fly, Lupin shouted over the wind. But we'd better stay earthbound tonight. Less chance of detection. They reached the Cornish coast by dawn, the sky streaked with pink and gold as they followed a narrow cliffside road. Eventually, Lupin slowed the bike, pulling over near what appeared to be an empty stretch of shoreline. This is Tinworth, he said, cutting the engine. I can feel the magical community nearby. Harry looked around, seeing nothing but cliffs, sea, and the occasional gull. How do we find Shell Cottage? Lupin withdrew the strange compass he'd packed earlier. This detects magical dwellings. Won't give us exact locations for places under enchantment, but it might point us in the right direction. The compass spun wildly for a moment, then settled, pointing toward a distant headland. There, Lupin said. About a mile up the coast. We'll have to go on foot from here, the bike's too noisy. They hiked along the cliff-top path, the rising sun warming their backs. Harry's mind churned with questions. If you knew Pettigrew was alive, he asked, why didn't you go to the Ministry yourself? Lupin's face tightened. Who would believe me? A werewolf, accusing the Ministry of imprisoning an innocent man? Without evidence, I'd be dismissed, possibly even arrested for interfering. And if certain people realized I was onto them. He shook his head. No, it had to be you, Harry. The boy who lived demanding answers, that creates a stir no one can ignore. You used me, Harry said, but there was no accusation in his tone, just understanding. I gave you a push toward the truth, Lupin corrected gently. A truth you deserved to know anyway. The rest was all you. They fell silent as they approached the headland. The compass grew warm in Lupin's hand, vibrating slightly. We're close, he murmured. Very close. The cottage must be just beyond this rise. They crested the hill, and Harry gasped. Below them, perched on a small bluff overlooking the sea, stood a beautiful stone cottage. Its walls were embedded with shells and whitewashed to gleaming. A small garden surrounded it, and smoke curled from the chimney. But what made Harry's heart leap was the sight of Ron, throwing bread to seagulls near the garden gate. Ron! Harry called, breaking into a run down the hill. Ron's head whipped around, his freckled face splitting into a grin. Harry! Blimey, how'd you find us? They collided in an enthusiastic hug, Ron pounding Harry's back. Everyone's been worried sick. Dad said you disappeared from the Prophet office before the Aurors arrived. It's a long story, Harry panted. Listen, where's Scabbers? Ron blinked at the unexpected question. Scabbers? Dunno. Haven't seen him since yesterday. Why? Because, said Lupin, joining them at the garden gate, we have reason to believe your rat isn't a rat at all. Ron stared at Lupin suspiciously. Who are you? Remus Lupin. I was a friend of Harry's parents. Lupin extended his hand, which Ron shook hesitantly. Is your father home? We need to speak with him urgently. Yeah, everyone's inside having breakfast, Ron said, looking bewildered. What's this about Scabbers? We'll explain everything, Harry promised. But first we need to find him. The inside of Shell Cottage was cozy and bright, filled with the smell of sizzling bacon and freshly baked bread. The entire Weasley family sat around a driftwood table, looking up in surprise as Ron led Harry and Lupin into the kitchen. Harry! Mr. Weasley exclaimed, jumping to his feet. Thank Merlin you're safe. But how did you find us? And who? His eyes widened as he recognized Lupin. Remus? Remus Lupin. Hello, Arthur, Lupin smiled. It's been a long time. You two know each other? Harry asked. Order of the Phoenix, Mr. Weasley explained. During the war. But Remus, what are you doing here? And Harry, we thought you were in a ministry-safe house. There's no time to explain everything, Lupin said urgently. Arthur, we need to find your son's rat immediately. I believe it's Peter Pettigrew in his animagus form. A stunned silence fell over the kitchen. That's not possible, Percy finally said. Peter Pettigrew is dead. No, Lupin insisted. He faked his death and framed Sirius Black. He's been hiding as a rat for 8 years, and according to Harry, your rat Scabbers matches the description, missing toe, extraordinarily long life for a common rat. Mrs. Weasley pressed a hand to her chest. Arthur, you don't think? It would explain a lot, Mr. Weasley said slowly. Particularly why he's lived so long. We need to find him, Lupin repeated. Now, before he realizes we're onto him. I haven't seen Scabbers since yesterday, Percy said, looking disturbed. He usually sleeps in my room, but he wasn't there this morning. Split up and search, Mr. Weasley decided. Fred, George, check the bedrooms. Percy, the study. Ron, Ginny, garden and shed. Molly and I will take the cellar and attic. What about me? Bill asked from the end of the table. Set anti-transformation wards around the property, Lupin suggested. If he is Pettigrew, we don't want him escaping once we find him. Bill nodded, immediately drawing his wand and heading outside. I know a spell that will force an animagus back into human form, Lupin told Mr. Weasley. But we'll need to corner him first. The search began in earnest. Harry joined Ron in the garden, looking under bushes and inside flower pots. Do you really think Scabbers is some bloke in disguise? Ron asked, peering into a water barrel. I think he might be the man who betrayed my parents, Harry said grimly. And if he is, he's not leaving here except in chains. After 30 minutes of fruitless searching, a shout came from inside the house. Found something, called one of the twins. Everyone rushed to the small bedroom Fred and George had been searching. Fred held up a rat-sized tuft of fur. It was stuck in a gap in the floorboards, he explained. Like something wriggled through in a hurry. Lupin examined the fur, his expression hardening. It's him. He's trying to escape through the floor. There's a crawl space under the cottage, Bill said. Connects to a small cave in the cliffside. I sealed the exit with wards, but if he's already inside. He'll be trapped, Lupin finished. Show me the access point. Bill led them to a small trapdoor in the pantry floor. It's tight down there, barely 3 feet high in most places. Lupin turned to the assembled Weasleys. I need you to create a perimeter around the cottage. If he breaks through Bill's wards, he'll try to run for it. What about me? Harry asked. You're staying with me, Lupin said firmly. If it is Peter, I want him to see exactly who he betrayed. Mr. Weasley organized his family into a defensive circle around the cottage while Lupin prepared to enter the crawl space. Ready? He asked Harry, wand raised. Harry nodded, heart hammering with anticipation. Lupin pulled open the trapdoor, revealing a dark space below. Lumos, Lupin whispered, his wand light illuminating dusty beams and dirt. Stay behind me, Harry. They descended into the cramped space, hunched over to avoid hitting their heads. The air was damp and smelled of salt and mold. Peter, Lupin called, his voice echoing slightly. I know you're down here. It's over. A scuffling noise came from the far corner, and Lupin's wand light caught a small shape darting between support pillars. There. Harry pointed. Lupin aimed carefully. Hominum revelio. A blue light shot from his wand, filling the crawl space with pulsing illumination. The rat squealed, trying to evade the spell, but the light engulfed it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rat began to change, limbs elongating, fur receding, tail disappearing. Seconds later, a small, balding man lay on the dirt floor, blinking in the wand light. Hello, Peter, Lupin said coldly. Pettigrew's watery eyes darted around frantically, finally settling on Harry with a look of terror. Harry, he squeaked. You look so much like James. Rage surged through Harry. Don't you dare say my father's name. You betrayed him. I didn't mean to. Pettigrew whimpered, pressing himself against the wall. The Dark Lord, you don't understand the weapons he possesses. What would you have done? I would have died. Harry shouted. I would have died rather than betray my friends. Pettigrew flinched as if struck. Remus, please, you must understand. I was frightened. So frightened you sent Sirius to Azkaban for 8 years? Lupin's voice was ice. So frightened you let Harry grow up an orphan, abused by muggles who hated magic. I never wanted any of it to happen, Pettigrew babbled. Sirius was going to kill me. I panicked. No more lies, Harry said, surprising himself with the quiet authority in his voice. You're going to tell the truth. To everyone. Lupin cast binding spells on Pettigrew, magical ropes wrapping around his wrists and ankles. Move, Peter. The Wizengamot is waiting. The front page of the Daily Prophet special morning edition was dominated by an enormous headline, Boy Who demands justice, Ministry scandal exposed. Harry Potter claims godfather imprisoned without trial. Below was a photograph of Harry looking determined, green eyes blazing with purpose. The article, spanning 3 full pages, detailed everything: the Ministry's failure to give Sirius a trial, Fudge's desperate attempts to suppress the evidence, and Harry's suspicions about Peter Pettigrew. Rita had outdone herself, writing with uncharacteristic restraint that only made the facts more damning. The final paragraphs delivered the knockout blow. I just want the truth, Mr. Potter told this reporter. About my parents, about that night, about everything that's been hidden from me. One must question why the Ministry has fought so vigorously to prevent a 9-year-old orphan from learning about his own family history. What else might be hidden in those sealed files? And why was Sirius Black, heir to one of Britain's oldest magical houses, denied the basic right to trial that our laws guarantee even to the most heinous offenders? The emergency Wizengamot session scheduled for 10 a.m. today may provide answers, if certain officials don't succeed in silencing the boy who lived first. All across magical Britain, wizards and witches read these words over breakfast, expressions ranging from shock to outrage. By 8 a.m., crowds had begun gathering outside the Ministry, demanding answers. Inside Shell Cottage, a more immediate drama unfolded. Peter Pettigrew sat bound to a kitchen chair, surrounded by the Weasleys, Lupin, and Harry. Mr. Weasley had sent an urgent Patronus message to Madame Bones, who arrived within minutes, accompanied by Kingsley Shacklebolt and 2 trusted Aurors. Merlin's beard, Bones whispered upon seeing Pettigrew. "It's really him. He was hiding as my son's pet, Mr. Weasley said grimly. For 8 years. 8 years. Percy looked ill. He slept in my bed. We need to get him to the Ministry, Bones decided. The Wizengamot session is in less than 2 hours, and this changes everything. What about Harry? Lupin asked. Fudge has people looking for him. He'll come with us, under official DMLE protection, Bones declared. With Pettigrew in custody, no one can deny him the right to witness justice being done. Within 30 minutes, their unusual party was ready to depart. Pettigrew, heavily restrained both physically and magically, whimpered continuously. The Weasleys would follow separately, Mr. Weasley having been officially summoned as a witness. The Prophet article has created quite a stir, Bones informed them as they prepared to depart via secure Ministry portkey. Fudge has been flooded with howlers. Dumbledore's political capital has taken a hit too. People are questioning why the Chief Warlock allowed this miscarriage of justice. Good, Harry said firmly. Everyone who let this happen should answer for it. They arrived in a secure chamber deep within the Ministry, bypassing the public entrances where reporters and curious citizens were gathering. Pettigrew was immediately taken to a holding cell, while Harry, Lupin, and Bones made their way to the Wizengamot chambers. The ancient courtroom was already filling with witches and wizards in plum-colored robes. Dumbledore sat in the Chief Warlock's chair, looking grave. Minister Fudge occupied a seat nearby, mopping his brow nervously while Umbridge whispered urgently in his ear. Wait here, Bones instructed Harry and Lupin, indicating a small antechamber. I need to prepare the Wizengamot for what's coming. We can't just parade Pettigrew in without explanation. As Bones departed, Harry turned to Lupin. Will they really free Sirius today? If there's any justice in the wizarding world, yes, Lupin answered. But be prepared, Harry. Peter's testimony will include details about that night, about your parents' deaths. It won't be easy to hear. Harry nodded solemnly. I need to know the truth. All of it. The antechamber door burst open, revealing Albus Dumbledore, his blue eyes lacking their usual twinkle. Harry, he said softly. I've been quite concerned about your whereabouts. He's been with me, Lupin said, stepping slightly in front of Harry. Hello, Albus. Remus, Dumbledore acknowledged with a nod. I see you've finally chosen to involve yourself in Harry's life. Someone had to, Lupin replied evenly. Once I realized what was happening. And what exactly is happening? Dumbledore asked, his tone mild but his eyes sharp. Beyond the most dramatic public challenge to Ministry authority in recent memory. Justice, Harry said simply. For Sirius. For my parents. For me. Dumbledore regarded Harry thoughtfully. Your determination is admirable, Harry, but I fear you've been rushed into situations you're not prepared for. There are complexities. Peter Pettigrew is alive, Harry interrupted. He was hiding as the Weasley's rat. He's in Ministry custody right now. Dumbledore went very still. You found Peter? Remus did, Harry corrected. He knew about the Animagus secret. Something you should have known too, as their headmaster. They never registered their forms, Dumbledore murmured, looking troubled. Though I suspected, but this changes matters considerably. If Peter truly betrayed your parents. Then Sirius is innocent, Harry finished. And he spent 8 years in Azkaban while you did nothing to help him. Dumbledore flinched slightly. Harry, the door opened again. Kingsley Shacklebolt stood there, resplendent in formal Auror robes. It's time, he said. Madame Bones has informed the Wizengamot about Pettigrew. They're ready to begin. The Wizengamot chamber had fallen silent as Harry entered, followed by Lupin, Dumbledore, and Shacklebolt. Hundreds of eyes tracked his progress to a small chair positioned near the center of the room. Unlike the chain chair used for criminals, this one was a simple wooden seat for witnesses. Hear ye, intoned an ancient wizard. This emergency session of the Wizengamot is now in session, Chief Warlock Albus Dumbledore presiding, concerning the matter of Sirius Black and newly discovered evidence. Dumbledore took his seat, face inscrutable. Madam Bones has brought serious allegations regarding procedural irregularities in the Black case. She will present the evidence. Bones stood, commanding instant respect in her formal robes. Esteemed members of the Wizengamot, I come before you with evidence of a grave miscarriage of justice. Sirius Black, imprisoned for betraying the Potters and murdering Peter Pettigrew, never received a trial. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Furthermore, Bones continued, we have reason to believe he is innocent of all charges. I call Harry Potter as our first witness. Harry stepped forward, heart pounding. The entire Wizengamot seemed to hold its breath. Mr. Potter, Bones began, please tell the court how you came to question the official account of your parents' deaths. Harry explained everything, the dreams, the mysterious letter, carefully omitting Lupin's involvement, his journey to the Ministry, and the discoveries in the archives. And what led you to believe Peter Pettigrew might still be alive? Bones prompted. My godfather, Sirius Black, was best friends with my father. In my memories, he loved me. It didn't make sense that he would betray us, Harry said firmly. Then I learned he never confessed to the betrayal, despite supposedly being caught red-handed. And Pettigrew's body was never found, just a finger. Thank you, Mr. Potter, Bones said. I now call Remus Lupin. Lupin took Harry's place, explaining the Marauders' friendship and their secret animagus transformations. So Peter Pettigrew could transform into a rat. Bones clarified. Small enough to escape after staging his own death. Exactly, Lupin confirmed. A common brown rat missing one toe, the same finger found at the scene. And do you have evidence that Pettigrew is alive? Bones asked. More than evidence, Lupin replied. We have Peter himself. The chamber erupted in shock. Fudge leapt to his feet, face purple. This is preposterous. Some impostor, silence. Dumbledore's voice cut through the chaos. Madam Bones, is this true? You have Pettigrew in custody? I do, Bones confirmed. Captured this morning at Shell Cottage, where he'd been living as the Weasley family's pet rat for 8 years. This is unprecedented, Dumbledore said, visibly struggling to maintain his composure. The Wizengamot will need to verify this person's identity. Easily done, Bones agreed. I've prepared Veritaserum and arranged for our most skilled legilimens to confirm his memories. Proceed, Dumbledore ordered. The side doors opened, and gasps echoed through the chamber as Pettigrew was led in, bound and surrounded by Aurors. He cowered, eyes darting frantically around the room. Members of the Wizengamot, Bones announced, I present Peter Pettigrew, allegedly deceased, Order of Merlin, First Class. That's impossible. Fudge spluttered. This is some trick, some impostor, let us find out, Dumbledore said gravely. Administer the Veritaserum. Despite Pettigrew's whimpering protests, 3 drops of the truth serum were placed on his tongue. His eyes immediately glazed over, his twitching subsiding. State your name, Bones commanded. Peter Pettigrew, came the flat response. The chamber fell deathly silent. Were you the secret keeper for James and Lily Potter? Yes. Gasps and cries of shock filled the room. Harry felt Lupin's steadying hand on his shoulder. Did you betray the Potter's location to Lord Voldemort? Yes. Why? He would have killed me, Pettigrew intoned emotionlessly. He was taking over everywhere. What was to be gained by refusing him? Did Sirius Black betray the Potters? No. He wasn't the secret keeper. I was. Did Sirius Black kill 12 muggles in the street confrontation after the Potters' deaths? No. I did. I shouted that he betrayed Lily and James, cut off my finger, cast a blasting curse behind my back, transformed into a rat and escaped through the sewers. Harry fought back tears of rage. This pathetic, cowering man had destroyed so many lives with his cowardice. Were you working for Voldemort? Bones continued. Yes. I became his spy more than a year before James and Lily died. I passed information about their movements, about the Order of the Phoenix. Are you a Death Eater? In response, Pettigrew mechanically rolled up his left sleeve, revealing a faded but visible mark on his forearm, a skull with a snake protruding from its mouth. The questioning continued for another 20 minutes, revealing the full extent of Pettigrew's betrayal. By the end, there wasn't a doubt in anyone's mind, Sirius Black was innocent. The Wizengamot will deliberate, Dumbledore announced, though the outcome seemed obvious. Please remove the prisoner. As Pettigrew was led away, still under Veritasarum's influence, the Wizengamot members conferred in hushed tones. After barely 5 minutes, Dumbledore called for order. It appears we are in agreement, he announced. The evidence is irrefutable. Sirius Black is innocent of all charges and to be released from Azkaban immediately. Furthermore, Peter Pettigrew is hereby stripped of his Order of Merlin and sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of 12 muggles, conspiracy with Lord Voldemort, and accessory to the murders of James and Lily Potter. Harry could hardly believe it. After 8 years of injustice, Sirius would finally be free. Additionally, Dumbledore continued, the Wizengamot recognizes that a serious miscarriage of justice has occurred. A full investigation into the circumstances surrounding Mr. Black's illegal imprisonment will commence immediately. All eyes turned to Fudge, who seemed to have shrunk in his chair. One final matter, Dumbledore said. Given these extraordinary revelations, the Wizengamot orders all files pertaining to the Potter case unsealed and made available to Harry Potter, as is his right as the last member of his house. Harry's heart leapt. Finally, he would know everything, the whole truth about his parents, about that night, about why Voldemort had targeted them. Thank you, Chief Warlock, Bones said formally. I have already dispatched Aurors to Azkaban to retrieve Sirius Black. They should return within the hour. As the session adjourned, Harry found himself surrounded by Weasleys, all talking excitedly. You did it, Harry. Ron exclaimed, pounding him on the back. You actually did it. We all did it, Harry corrected, grinning. Without your family, we'd never have caught Pettigrew. Still can't believe Scabbers was a murderer, Fred, or George, said, shaking his head. Knew there was something off about that rat, the other twin added. Too clever by half. Mr. Weasley approached with Madam Bones. Harry, Amelia's offered her office for your reunion with Sirius. It's more private than the main atrium, where reporters are gathering. Will he be, okay? Harry asked anxiously. After 8 years in Azkaban? Azkaban affects everyone differently, Bones said gently. He'll need time to recover, but knowing he's innocent and that you're waiting for him, that's powerful medicine. The next hour was the longest of Harry's life. He paced Bones's office, unable to sit still, while Lupin watched with understanding eyes. He loved you so much, Harry, Lupin said softly. After you were born, he practically lived at your parents' cottage. He brought you a toy broomstick for your first birthday, you nearly killed the cat, zooming around the living room. Harry clung to these stories, building a picture of the godfather he couldn't remember. The man who had loved him, who had suffered unjustly for 8 years. Finally, a silver lynx, Kingsley's Patronus, bounded into the office. They're here, it announced in Kingsley's deep voice. Preparing him now. 10 minutes. Harry's heart threatened to beat out of his chest. Lupin squeezed his shoulder. Ready? Ready, Harry nodded, though his knees felt weak. The door opened, and Kingsley entered first. He's very weak, he warned. The journey was difficult for him. But he insisted on coming straight to you once he heard you were here. Kingsley stepped aside, and a gaunt figure appeared in the doorway. Sirius Black bore little resemblance to the handsome youth in Lupin's photograph. His face was waxy, skull-like, with deep hollows beneath his cheekbones. Matted hair hung to his elbows. The prison uniform hung from his skeletal frame. But his eyes, dark eyes that locked onto Harry with desperate intensity, burned with life. "Harry," he whispered, his voice a rasp from disuse. "Harry, is it really you?" Harry couldn't speak. He crossed the room in 3 quick steps and threw his arms around his godfather, burying his face against Sirius's chest. Thin arms encircled him, holding him as if he might disappear. "You're so big," Sirius murmured into Harry's hair. "Last time I saw you, you were tiny, just learning to walk." "I remembered you," Harry managed through tears. "In my dreams. You called me Prongslet." Sirius made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. James hated that nickname. Said it was undignified. But it stuck. Harry pulled back slightly, looking up at his godfather's ravaged face. "I'm going to live with you now," he declared, leaving no room for argument. "Not the Dursleys. You're my rightful guardian." "Harry," Lupin cautioned gently. "Sirius will need time to recover, to establish a home." "No," Sirius interrupted, surprising everyone with his firmness. "Harry's right. I'm his godfather. James and Lily named me his guardian if anything happened to them." He straightened, seeming to gather strength from his conviction. "I failed him once. I won't fail him again." "Sirius, be reasonable," Lupin began. "You've just spent 8 years in Azkaban. You're in no condition." "I have a house," Sirius said stubbornly. "Grimmauld Place. I inherited it when my mother died. It's not pleasant, but it's magically protected, and it's mine. We'll make it work." "Perhaps a compromise," came Dumbledore's voice from the doorway. He entered, blue eyes taking in the scene. "Mr. Black will indeed need time to recuperate, while still establishing his guardianship. Perhaps Harry could divide his time this summer, weekends with Mr. Black, weekdays with the Weasleys, who have already shown such care for him." "With respect, Headmaster," Sirius said coldly, "you've had your chance at arranging Harry's life. You left him with Petunia, who by all accounts treated him abominably. You let me rot in Azkaban without a trial. Your judgment regarding Harry's welfare is no longer welcome." Dumbledore's face fell. "I have made grave mistakes, Sirius. I believed, wrongly, that blood protection with Petunia was Harry's best chance at safety. As for your imprisonment..." He sighed heavily. "I was as deceived as everyone regarding Peter's betrayal, but I should have ensured you received a fair trial. For that, I can only offer my profound apologies." "Apologies don't give me back 8 years," Sirius said harshly. "And they don't give Harry back his childhood." "No," Dumbledore agreed quietly. "They don't. But perhaps we can all focus now on giving Harry the future he deserves." Harry, still pressed against Sirius's side, spoke up. "I want to see my parents' complete files." "You promised the Wizengamot would unseal them." "Indeed," Dumbledore nodded. "They are being prepared as we speak. But Harry, I must caution you, there are aspects of your parents' deaths that are difficult to understand at your age." "I'm not a baby," Harry said firmly. "I've faced more than most adults already. I deserve to know everything." "Very well," Dumbledore conceded. "The files will be delivered to Madame Bones's office within the hour. We'll review them together," Sirius decided, arm tightening around Harry's shoulders. "All of us." The complete Potter files contained revelations even Sirius and Lupin hadn't expected. The 3 of them, along with Madame Bones, spent hours poring over the documents in her office, piecing together the full story. Most shocking was the prophecy, a prediction made by Sybil Trelawney to Dumbledore himself, foretelling a child born at the end of July who would have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. That's why he came after you specifically, Sirius realized, horror dawning on his gaunt face. Not just your parents, you. The prophecy could have referred to 2 children, Bones explained. Harry Potter or Neville Longbottom, both born as the 7th month died. But Voldemort chose Harry. Why? Harry asked. Why me and not Neville? That's unclear, Bones admitted. Though there's speculation in Dumbledore's notes that it might relate to your mother's blood status. Lily was Muggle-born, while both Longbottom parents were pure blood. Voldemort, despite his rhetoric about blood purity, was himself half-blood. Another file contained details of the Fidelius charm and the last-minute switch from Sirius to Peter as secret keeper, a fact known only to the Potters, Sirius, and Peter. Not even Dumbledore knew. Lupin asked, shocked. We didn't tell anyone, Sirius confirmed, voice hollow with regret. I suggested the switch. Everyone would expect me to be secret keeper as James's best friend. No one would suspect Peter. His hands clenched into fists. I as good as killed them with that brilliant plan. You couldn't have known, Harry said fiercely. Peter fooled everyone. The files also contained post-incident reports that raised troubling questions. Why had Hagrid, on Dumbledore's orders, taken Harry directly to Privet Drive, bypassing both St. Mungo's and the Ministry's child welfare protocols? Why had Dumbledore placed unorthodox blood wards around the Dursley home without Ministry oversight? And perhaps most disturbing, why had he sealed the Potter's will, which explicitly named Sirius as Harry's guardian with Lupin as alternate? He made himself your magical guardian after sending Sirius to Azkaban, Bones explained, looking troubled. Which gave him significant legal control over your life and inheritance. My inheritance? Harry repeated. You mean, I have more than just my parents' photo album? Sirius let out a bark of surprised laughter. Harry, the Potters were one of the wealthiest families in magical Britain. You have a vault full of gold at Gringotts. And properties, the cottage in Godric's Hollow was just your parents' home, not the ancestral Potter estate. Harry's mind reeled. Not only had he been kept ignorant of his magical heritage, but he'd been living in a cupboard while owning multiple properties. We need to visit Gringotts, Sirius decided. As soon as possible. I want to review James and Lily's will properly, see exactly what Dumbledore's been keeping from you. As evening approached, exhaustion finally caught up with them all. Sirius, still weak from his ordeal, could barely keep his eyes open. Harry, running on excitement and determination for days, was practically swaying on his feet. You both need rest, Bones declared. I've arranged secure accommodations at St. Mungo's. Sirius needs medical attention, and Harry can stay in an adjoining room under aura protection. What about tomorrow? Harry asked sleepily. Gringotts? My inheritance? All in good time, Bones assured him. Your godfather isn't going anywhere, Harry. You have the rest of your lives to sort everything out. As they prepared to leave, a small owl arrived with a special evening edition of the Daily Prophet. The headline said it all, Justice at Last. Sirius Black innocent, Peter Pettigrew alive boy who lived vindicates godfather in Ministry showdown. The accompanying photo showed Harry and Sirius reunited, the boy's arms wrapped around his godfather's waist, both with tears in their eyes. Quite the debut into Wizarding Society, Lupin remarked with a small smile. Not even at Hogwarts yet, and you've already overturned Ministry corruption and freed an innocent man. Definitely James's son, Sirius murmured proudly. And Lily's, Lupin added. She never backed down from fighting injustice either. Harry yawned, leaning against Sirius's side. I just wanted the truth, he said simply. About them. About you. About everything. And you found it, Sirius said, arm around Harry's shoulders. Thanks to your courage and determination. James and Lily would be so proud, Harry. So proud. As they left the Ministry, Harry felt a profound sense of completion. The journey that had begun with nightmares and a mysterious letter had ended with justice and family. He still had questions, about the prophecy, about Voldemort's disappearance, about his own survival, but they could wait. For now, he had what he'd always wanted most, the truth about his past, and a real family for his future. 3 days after his dramatic arrival at the Ministry of Magic, 9-year-old Harry Potter walked out with his godfather by his side, ready to begin a new chapter in a life that had already been extraordinary. And somewhere in the Department of Mysteries, a glass orb containing a prophecy glowed briefly brighter, as if acknowledging that the wheels of destiny had begun to turn in earnest. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.